It's now 7:01. As most people know, we had a meeting scheduled for last week that was canceled due to the snowstorm, so we have some stuff left over from last week that we'll be dealing with tonight. But the first order of the business is swearing in of our new town manager, Chris Senior. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
You'll see the town clerk in the audience. How do you want to do this?
Chris can stand up, raise his right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully perform the duties of Cohasset Town Manager to the best of your ability?
I do. Thank you.
Third time she's sworn in?
3 times the charms.
Okay, public comment. Okay, we have an appointment to consider for the Historical Commission. Who would like to take the floor?
No, she isn't here. I
You wanna
would,
hold on?
I'm gonna leave this on the committee if you don't, if she doesn't show up. He. Oh,
It's-
he, oh, you want,
And it's 7:20.
well, it says
Yeah,
7:20
we're a little bit
on
early
here.
on that,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, well, we can come back to that. Let's go to license and permits. So we have a Class 2 car dealer's license for Caroline Emery doing business as Cohasset Car Sales, 827 Chief Justice Cushing Highway.
Is this something that already exists?
Yes,
It's already,
Is
is
that-
this a renewal?
it's a new owner, and it's cut down from 50 cars to 40 to accommodate lapels, that's right next door.
Oh, so this is the one where we had revoked the.
You had to revoke the last
existing
one,
lease,
yes.
so, yeah.
I'll move the Class 2 car license for Caroline Emery doing business as Cushing Car Sales, 827 Chief Justice Cushing Highway. Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Cohasset Drama Club, 2-day beer and wine license for a short play performance at Town Hall, February 7th and 8th.
Was Lisa gonna be here, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we'll come back to that. The MS Cape Cod Getaway, June 28th and 29th, application.
You have,
Okay. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Could you just state your name for the record?
My name is Bill Sykes. My company is Promotaline, and we are the logistics managing company for the MS Cape Cod Getaway.
Very good. So we have your application, and you'd like to come through, I believe it's a 2-day event, but you come through on the first day, is that it?
June 28th. We'll be in town from approximately 8:15 until 10:30,
Okay.
and that'll be riding through. There's a rest stop at the South Shore Music Circuits.
Does the board have any questions?
This is the same weekend as the triathlon?
Very Sunday.
This has nothing to do with this event, but we might wanna try next year to do some better planning, is that the triathlon, or, make sure that we're not tying up residents for both days of the weekend.
How many cyclists are you anticipating?
2,200.
And it's not a race, so they're all kinda,
And we hire police according to the, your police department. I call them prior to the event. We sort of set up the schedule of where we have offices at wind intersections. And they're on site during the whole day. We have, EMS with the event. There's an ambulance that follows the last riders, there's, EMTs on the road. There is ham operators on the road, which are SAG vehicles, keeping people in control.
And it says here that the cyclists will ride single file on the right side of the road.
That's what we tell them to do.
At least you
Therein
try.
lies the rub, right?
So you actually anticipate that through traffic can still continue in the same direction as the cyclist?
Yeah, we'll have police officers at critical turns, generally left turns, so when the rider has to cut across the road, there'll be police officers there to either hold them or let them go, hold the cars and let them go.
Okay.
That's generally how we work.
And just for the people at home, could you just review the Cohasset Road?
Yep.
Because they can't see the map that we have.
Jerusalem Road, North Main Street, Ripley Road, Savoyer. Then they turn up Savoyer to go to South Shore Road Music Circus. North Main Street, Highland Avenue, Beach Street, Atlantic, Margin, Summer, and Border. And again, the first riders should be getting into Cohasset about 8:15. And the last riders, the slowest riders, we figure the fastest riders at 20 miles per hour average, and the slowest riders at 10 mile per hour average. And that generally holds pretty good for the beginning of the ride. We're at mile 15 and 22 on the ride.
So Tracy, the police didn't sign off, or?
Yeah, I believe we did. Well, Bill's-
Yeah, we've signed off. We have a traffic plan in place that we use.
Okay, it's just, it's not on the copy that I got, so.
No, it's
I'm-
you probably got the original, that wasn't, Jen sends it out to all the different, departments, but it's completely signed off, we wouldn't have brought, that's why the date on it is a couple months back, 'cause it takes time to have it.
No, I
written
remember
down.
we've had it for a
Yeah.
long time, I know that.
And once we get all the sign-offs from all the cities and towns and all the agencies and on the route, we send it into Mass DOT and then they sign off.
Okay, great.
Mr. Chairman, just so you're aware, though Mr. Sykes didn't mention it, we also require them to provide an ambulance for the town of Cohasset during the time of the event. So they pay for a detail
Oh.
for 4 hours for 2 paramedics. So we run a second ALS ambulance that day. So that during this period, what we've found in the past is that unfortunately, we've had accidents and they've impacted the town of Cohasset. So therefore, they now pay for a fire detail for that same 4-hour window, or a minimum of 4-hour window, even though they're only in town for 2.5 hours.
Thank you, Chief.
I just have a general question that maybe either the chief knows the answer or somebody here knows the answer to. But when we have races in town, whether it's, especially the bike races, is there any DPW work that takes place kind of in advance? Actually, Mary's here. You know, just to get sand off the road, or are they ever a part of that process?
It's usually done by then,
Okay.
in May.
Yeah, this is all the way into June, so.
June.
No, I'm just saying, it's probably something to think about in the future, whether that's something we wanna build into it, cause, you know, I don't know.
I would say that for the road race by the sea, as an example,
Yeah,
that's at the point of the year where Carl is starting to do his
Right.
work. And he does the streets that involve the road race by the sea.
yeah.
And that's just because that's the time of year that they start that, but they obviously start with those roads that are gonna be impacted by that. But other than that, most of the time, those streets are a long time clear by the time these other events.
Yeah, but just thinking out for the future and just as kind of standard protocol, it's probably a conversation we should have, you know, what if there were like a hurricane the weekend before and there's lots of limbs down and then we've got this race coming through, you know? And it certainly shouldn't be, the burden shouldn't be on the town, but we probably should think about those kinds of things, just to build a more perfect,
Yeah, we had that
race.
situation come up last year in Situate,
Yeah,
where they were doing construction right on our route and
Yeah.
made the road impassable.
yeah.
So we had to change the route the week prior to the ride, and we managed to do that.
So I know DPW signs off on this too, so I think anything like that, we would probably hopefully get queued up, but just something to always keep in our minds. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Do we have a motion?
So I'll move approval for June 28th as a Cape Cod Getaway MS bike ride.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0,
Nay,
thank you.
nay.
Oh, nay, 4 to 1. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Now we have a McCourt Foundation bike ride, October 4th.
Do you know whether they were planning on it? I think so. I think Lisa's here.
Well, we'll come back to that, I guess.
Maybe they'll come in later. You
Yeah.
wanna hold it?
Yeah. Okay, Cohasset Kids Triathlon.
This is, I think, very nice. I like this.
The kids triathlon, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I screwed up my
Tough.
jacket yoga last night,
Oh,
so it wasn't yoga. though.
Tough yoga, huh?
It wasn't, I'm just blaming it on yoga.
I'm feeling good, Deb.
I don't like it. I'm Deb Beal. I know some of you, not all of you. So you guys have read a little bit about it?
Mm-hmm.
What we basically wanna do is we wanna build off the triathlon that's already in the town. I teach over at the school system, and we're trying to make lifelong fitness a staple in these kids' lives, especially in the middle school, because it's a really formidable year for them. And we work closely with the elementary schools, with Kevin Dykes and Mike White, just promoting physical activity, not always just playing basketball or playing soccer or whatever, but actually going out and running. So what we did at school this year, my colleague Ron Ford and I, we began a Couch to 5K running program with these kids. And you know, we were met with some resistance, but we made it really, really simple for them. They could run, they could walk, they could run, walk, they could do whatever. And the response that we got from these kids was great. So I was out on a dog walk one afternoon with a friend of mine and bumped into Bill. And I said to him, how can I promote your triathlon in our school system? How can I get these kids excited so that when they're 13 or 14 years old, they can be part of the Cohasset Triathlon? Because, like it or not, it is a huge event. You don't go a day in that school system without seeing someone wearing a Cohasset Triathlon shirt, hat, anything. So we kind of hemmed and hawed about some ideas on the dog walk. It was really low key. And we didn't leave with any great ideas, but I said maybe you could come in, promote it in my classes, and we go from there. So I'd say maybe 5 or 6 weeks passed, and he contacted me and he said, what if we just think about, put it out there, running a triathlon for these kids, 14 and under. And I just think it's unbelievable. I think it's gonna be, the biggest thing for these kids is, if you could sum it up in one word, it's just opportunity. It's opportunity to be something part of in their town. And I'm just 100% behind it. I think it's a fantastic idea. So we kind of gathered a little team of people together and started jumping through hoops to see what we could do. And I obviously turned to Bill because he's got the company, Streamline Events, and they're sanctioned, insured. They've done it before. He runs probably 12 to 15 races annually. So who better to pair with? Why not? Don't want to rebuild everything here. Let's just go with something that works. So we tried to pick a venue where, you know, safety is our highest priority. Don't want to put these kids in the ocean. I mean, I'm an adult. I do the triathlon. I still fear the ocean. So I would never want to put a kid in that situation. So we thought maybe the community pool, where some of these kids have grown up and swim already. And the pool committee was on board. They think it's a great idea. It gives them some publicity, and gets the people out there seeing the pool. Maybe these kids will join the pool after that or something. And then we tried to keep it to an area where we wouldn't have to disrupt the whole town. So we're thinking the bottom of Sawyer Street at the library at Ripley, up to Fair Oaks,
close that road for 2 hours, 8:30 to 10:30, with leaving the traffic lane open in case of any emergency in the town. And we can do that easily with cones. You know, I'm not the expert in traffic plans and traffic safety, that's why we have Chief Sylvia here and Sergeant Trainer and Chief Quigley. You know, they'll be all our answers for that. And then as far as the residents of Fair Oaks, we have not really reached out to them yet, because we wanted to get your approval first before we kind of rock that boat. But there's a ton of kids in that neighborhood, and I think it's gonna be huge. We're looking to draw 500-600 kids from ages 5 to 14. And they'll all go off in separate heats. We're not gonna have 5-year-olds swimming with 14-year-olds, obviously. Keep it safe.
Where are you gonna have the adult fun run?
That's still in
You
the
haven't-
works,
you
but
don't
that
know
will,
yet.
that will be, we won't open any other roads.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, and one of the big things is, and Diane can attest to this, cause her husband is a runner also. I do a lot of road races, and a lot of races do kids races attached to the adult races. So our thought was, let's get these parents involved, because we can use them on the course as, you know, as volunteers to keep the kids safe and whatever, and then some people are hardcore trainers and they're gonna miss a day of training so that they can take their kid to do a kids triathlon, so why not throw them a bone too? Absolutely. And you guys can do it.
Well, Martha
We'll give you a
can.
free bill number.
Martha can. Martha can.
Sure she can, let's go.
The rest of us is another story.
No, we're not kidding, Martha's the one that can.
No, I don't doubt it.
No, I do it at 5:30 in the morning, when
God
it's
bless
good
you.
weather. No sand, no ice, no hurricane.
So like in June?
No, I do it in the winter, but, you know, we had ice this morning.
Yeah.
And it's dark.
It's very dark in the morning. Do you have a headlamp?
Well, I take a flashlight and it goes back and forth,
Good for you.
so the car doesn't.
She
I mean,
puts us
it-
to shame.
Yeah. I just go a mile, that's all.
That's all you need. Get up and move.
So I have a question on the traffic control. If somebody lives in this area, will they be able to get in and out?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I had a concern, with just the thought of, you know, a number of kids on bicycles focused on what they're doing,
Correct.
going through the neighborhood and people trying to get in and out
Right.
of their driveways, and it just seems like it's setting it up for some potential danger. So will there be police?
Yeah, what, our initial thought was, and I think you guys have a map, I'm not
Yeah.
100% sure.
I'm not sure I understood it.
Yeah, we have a.
Yeah,
map in
see
the
these
back.
little
Here it is.
circles here, on Fair Oaks?
Right.
Those would be cones, or people, so that all the travel would be in just one lane. So, say you live halfway through on the inside, you can travel on that
Oh, I
inside
see.
lane until you get to that intersection, and then there will be public safety officers there to get you across.
I guess I'm just more concerned with people backing out of a driveway. and
Right.
kids
Well, we can
just-
man that neighborhood,
Yeah.
with parents and volunteers. I mean, there's not one of these kids that can drive themselves to the triathlon, so they're coming with somebody.
Right. Well,
So let's use them.
will you use like chips for their sneakers? Are you gonna time them or?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, we're timing,
Right.
right?
What time?
We're timing.
But I think one important distinction with something like this is it's not necessarily a race,
Right,
you know, so, or it shouldn't be,
right.
maybe. You know, the kids will
That'll
get
be
time,
enforced.
they'll wanna beat their friend, but, you know, it's not like,
Right, well, we don't want anyone
It's
to
not
get injured,
madness.
and Fair Oaks is a big hill,
Yeah.
coming out of there.
going down.
Going down,
I don't know
so-
how you go up.
You just pedal
That's
hard.
another story, yeah.
Deb, have you set an entry fee? Am I missing it?
We have not, but we were thinking in the ballpark of anywhere between 35 and 50.
Isn't that high for kids?
Well, we're hoping like 40, but we like to
Yeah.
think little and aim high.
Well, I'm just.
Because I mean, the triathlon itself, what
Well,
is that
I
now,
know that, I know
95?
that,
I
but
mean, that's,
I'm just thinking of the parents, you know, little kids, they might.
Just in terms of the cost with all the,
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
safety,
you
though,
have to
you're
figure out the
getting up to-
cost for,
right.
yeah.
I've seen a few that range anywhere from 35 to 40.
the kids,
That,
Yeah.
that seems to be a.
That
Yeah.
seems good,
Family plan.
Exactly.
yeah,
We
that's
can-
something
we
to
can work
consider too,
something.
yep.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I see the map on here. Have you taken this forward to Chief Sylvia, Chief Quigley?
I know that Chief, quickly, have you seen it? I know
Yeah.
Christian County was working with you, and I know you've seen it, right?
Seen it and signed off, or just seen it so
Yeah,
far?
cause we don't have any sign-offs.
We've signed off, the police have signed off on it.
There's sign-offs in your application. Page number.
Yep, you're right, I apologize.
Okay, yeah. We seem to have different applications. We don't. Both things are in different places or something.
Well, I think there's an application,
I think there's formal,
and then
We
there's,
have a formal application.
there is a formal application.
and then this is the sign-off, which is like an addendum to the formal application, Tracy, is that right?
So it doesn't matter,
This is the
I
sign
think that's why we
Yes.
missed it, because it's in a different.
So,
Yeah.
I'm inclined to approve it, I'm just speaking for myself. I'm a little bit concerned that we haven't run it by Fair Oaks yet, so.
Okay.
There's a way to, just get them on board here to make sure that there's not gonna be issues. I know the roads and streets in Cohasset are very complicated, some are private ways, some aren't, there's public ways. Just need to make sure that, in this case, that the neighborhood up there is okay with it.
Okay.
And then you have my support, and I just wanna,
Deb,
Yeah,
there
go
is there has been a homeowners association. It's not on its own, it's just a collection of the homeowners who live there.
In that particular neighborhood?
It might serve as a point of communication.
Okay.
Just if you know a few families that live there, just ask them about it.
Yep, no, I do.
Okay.
I
Bill,
I
were you
probably
gonna
have
say
all of them
something?
in calls.
okay.
I just was wondering how we were gonna do that, to find out who's
Does
the
that
leader
work?
of Fair Oaks.
The homeowners association, or?
It's
I mean,
it's a point of communication, Bill.
What, I understand, but ideally, we'd like to have you vote tonight, and then if there are concerns and issues, we'll bring them back forward to the board. But we've done we've done legwork, met with the different departments and all.
Well,
The other piece of the puzzle with Fair Oaks, and Bill and I had this long discussion in my office, is the final route for the bicycle hasn't been completely, and that's why the Fair Oaks piece is still in play, because we're, again, as Diane mentioned, we're concerned about steep hills and 6- and 7-year-olds on bicycles. So, things that we can do to possibly slow them down, such as turn into the Deer Hill School, so that they have to slow to make the turn instead of just screaming down the hill, and then they get to come in and around the school and back out. So the final route for the bicycle, I think, is still one of those things we're
well,
discussing.
if you'll be flexible with Fair Oaks, just in case there's a problem there and you need to do like all the way down Sawyer and then in Deer Hill School or something as an alternative, you know, I can support. I just don't wanna commit the Fair Oaks neighborhood to something without them having seen it. So, you know, we do need to run it by them, and if they're okay with them, fine, but if for instance, they have, some concerns, as long as you can figure out an alternative course between 3A on Sawyer and,
Maybe-
Ripley Road, yeah.
I mean, I have concerns about signing off on something where the bike route hasn't been finished yet and also, but I'm always in favor of neighborhoods being included, when they're going to be, so I support you in that, Mr. Chair. I do wonder, however, that we don't offer the same, opportunity to other neighborhoods for events we have just, approved. So, it's just a comment.
You know what you could do, you could go up to Osgood and go around.
Right, that's what we were
Yeah,
considering also.
I'm looking at this, yeah.
I mean, we want this to be an event that happens year after year, so, you know, we go up to Fair Oaks and all of a sudden, everything explodes. We wanna be able to go back there, so we're very clearly going to work with them.
I don't have any doubt of it, I
Right.
just,
But it's just, I think that at this point, we're
could we-
almost already February.
Could we vote provisionally to approve it with a sign off on the final bike route? And also, making sure that any neighborhood concerns are addressed?
I think so, yeah. Is that okay with the
Yeah, I
board?
was trying to
Yeah,
come
that's
up with a
fine.
motion. I'd
Yeah,
like,
that's
I
fine
mean,
with me.
obviously, they, I think, need to go, in theory, forward with a date and an event,
Yeah.
so that they
Yeah,
can
we need to
begin
get it in the books and get ready.
make it happen, and then,
The other question I have, Devin, you may not know this, but when you're talking about the beneficiaries, which would be the swim center, which would make a gift donation, the Cohasset Public Schools and a national charity, which hasn't been determined yet. Do you have any feel for what percentage, of the proceeds would be donated?
We do not.
Do you have a feel that most of it would go to necessary costs? I mean, obviously, there's a cost to setting it up and.
We just don't, it depends on how many kids come to the event. To be, I mean, for a first year event, that's the best I can do. But we've already committed, money to the Cohasset Swim Center. And so, certainly, the Swim Center will benefit from this, and then, we'll still work on the charity piece. We may have an update for you in a couple months on that, to be honest with you. If you want to come back in April or May, we can do that.
I think obviously we'd all like to see as much of the money, because I know how expensive this is, so, you know, whatever there is left over, as much of it that can stay in Cohasset, obviously the better.
That's my plan.
Exactly.
Yeah, we put national charity, but we've been talking about a local charity too,
Local
so, right,
charity.
Deb, so.
Yeah,
Well, I like the food pantry.
the food
and stuff.
pantry,
food
yeah,
pantry,
something like
exactly.
that.
Yeah, that's right, so I think that was, an earlier, what you've seen there, now I put national in there, it really should be, Cohasset charity.
So I'll go ahead and move Saturday, July 12th, 2014, approve the Cohasset Kids Triathlon. You know, subject to us approving final routes, probably whenever in the next couple months, and obviously working on any issues with the neighborhood.
Okay, second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Job,
Good luck.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Jim, come on up. We're all set to do the appointment. Have a seat, Jim, just state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Jim Morrison, from 505 Beechwood Street.
Welcome.
Thank you.
for coming in, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, so, you've got a very impressive resume here.
Well, too impressive, I think. I gave you too many pages. My field doesn't deal in resumes, we deal in curricula vitae.
Well, on sheer volume of paperwork alone, it's very impressive.
Well, you can throw it down the stairs and, see what.
See if it bounces.
Yeah.
On sheer volume of education experience and, expertise, it's impressive.
Well, thank you. Well, I think the credit for my inspiration for applying for the Historical Commission has to do with my wife, Marilyn, who passed away on December 20th. She was my real teacher so far as Cohasset is concerned. I've lived here for 30 years, but of course she lived here all of her life. I learned a lot from her with respect to genealogy and the history of Cohasset and her dedication to the town and its historical heritage. I remember her telling stories about, like, I think all of her siblings going to the steeple of the meeting house on the common, and as her father would, Nelson Pratt would wind the clock on the tower steeple, those are some of the most moving moments of our marriage, and I just only hope that if I were on the board that I could help to further her dedication to this town.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll move Jim's appointment to the Historical Commission.
Is there a second? Any further
Jim.
discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Well,
Okay.
the one thing I wanna say is that I've been asking, we need a couple more volunteers for this committee. And I hope, with people hearing you, stepping up, that we'll next week get some more applications.
I hope so too.
Yes.
Is there an age limit? Do you have to be a registered voter to serve on the committee? Do you know?
I'm not familiar with the requirements, I think just a citizen.
Yeah.
You can double check on the
I got a
requirements.
17-year-old in mind, so.
Some energy and enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Morrison, thank you very much.
History
I'm
buff.
sorry to
Thank
hear you.
Thank you.
Yes.
This is a great way to honor her.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you
And
very much for
I-
stepping
I
up.
knew her very well, and for a long time, and she was quite a dedicated person, and really, is quite knowledgeable of the town and, historical things.
I've always enjoyed Memorial Day parades, marching up to Beechwood and getting away from her.
She kept a good eye on you.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Charlie.
Yep, Lisa's here.
Right after that, we'll just go through this case. Hi.
Hi, Lisa.
How you doing?
Lisa Pratt, 51 Highland Avenue, representing the Cohasset Dramatic Club.
Sounds like a great event.
Yeah. So we have this little block of time in the winter when not much seems to happen in our beautiful auditorium. And so the thought was to do something that's very different and to involve more people and do something better, just sort of a new thing for the community, and that was to create a short play festival. So these are 7 short plays written by nationally award-winning short play playwrights. It really is a genre that is people only write for. They're each 10 minutes long, so there's 7 of them. There are 7 directors. They're all 20-some cast members. And we thought to just mix it up and make it a little more interesting would be to have cabaret-style seating and serve, just sort of crackers and cheese that everyone would, with the price of your ticket, which is just $15 a ticket. We're really just hoping to bring people in to try something new. And our request was that we could, from carafes, serve in small little 6-ounce clear plastic cups, wine along with sparkling water and seltzer and things like that. It's a really short window of when we actually are able to serve, because we would do it prior to the show, so basically about 15 or 20 minutes before 7:30, and then at intermission, which is another 15-minute window block. And then that's it. We would not be serving after intermission or while the show was going on.
And you anticipate like 30 to 50 people-ish for,
Yeah,
for each?
it's
Yeah,
about
you don't
all
know.
it's about all it is. I mean, on the high side, we'd probably have 50 people there.
Right.
Tip certified server, as well as, again, not leaving any kind of alcohol on the table, but only serving it, and then, it being, so basically served is what it is, at no cost.
So they'll be bringing it back into the auditorium?
Yeah, they'll be served, so we're gonna have tables set up in the auditorium, tables, tablecloths, and the whole thing, and then they'll be served at the table. So
Oh, I
they
see.
would serve it to the table, and then it would be, they'd go from table to table serving it, as well as, alcoholic beverages as well. So anyone who is, not of age, of course, would not be.
Have you done anything like this before, Lisa?
We've never done anything like this before. We've never done anything like this before, and so we understand that we're treading on new ground, but, we figured nothing ventured, nothing gained, and it's such a small window that we felt it was very controllable and, not something that had the risk of getting out of hand.
And we already have an ongoing procedure with you for cleanup and with the dramatic club.
We do. We pay custodial fees for the windows of time that we are in production for plays. Yeah, we pay for that, as well as we're probably the best police people you have. I clean the floor in there all the time, and I've already swept this week's salt and sand after the dance and peeled paint off the floor, and so I think we do. We're great. We do care so much for the space, and because we feel it represents us and you guys. And my best friends are Derek and Butch and Tom.
And they have to be.
I'm with those guys a lot, yeah.
So I'll move approval of I guess it would be a 2-day, liquor license for February 7th, February 8th.
Second.
And a waiver of I think it's a $50 fee, so.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5-0, congratulations.
Thank you very much, I really appreciate it.
Good luck.
Next time you have a break in your schedule, you
You're all
should,
welcome.
next time you have a break in your schedule, you should take a break.
Yeah. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, no, I know you don't.
Anybody from the McCoy Foundation? in the audience? Okay, we'll come back to that. Charlie?
Good evening.
Good evening.
For the record, my name is Charles Humphreys. I'm an attorney. I'm here tonight representing the Red Lion Inn. By the way, welcome aboard. I'll be brief. We've got quite an agenda, it looks to me like. So I just want to move quickly to the opportunity presented to me tonight, just to discuss entertainment, sound, so forth, vis-a-vis the Red Lion Inn. On December 31st, I did send the Board of Selectmen a letter, which would be in the file. And it's kind of important to me because it kind of outlines, what I think should be occurring. But let me just say, to introduce it, the Red Lion Inn is a very valuable asset in the village and in the community. It employs 50 to 60 to 70 people. It's a substantial taxpayer. It's an extraordinary destination which greatly helps the village and its stores by continuously providing people who stay and visit and shop there. It's an asset that does need some improvement, and we're gonna be addressing that. But as a basic entity, it's a gorgeous place. It provides magnificent weddings. It's providing good food and service. And so we've got to preserve it and allow it to function, much the way we allow everything else. There are two basic questions here that I want to put on the table. One is the question of what is an outside wedding anything that the board has jurisdiction over? Cohasset permits outside weddings everywhere, on the town common, Government Island, the beach. And a wedding is not entertainment. It's a ceremony which we permit. And I don't believe there should be any prohibition. There's none under zoning, there's none under the bylaw. It's a proper accessory use for a business that's permitted to be a function hall and restaurant. And so I'm asking the board to declare that thinking from the file, because it's gone back and forth. If you read the deep file, there's been town managers who said, you can't have outside weddings. Then they've said, well, you can't have outside weddings with music or entertainment, and there's a lot of confusion. So I wanted to create that bright line, that mainly a ceremonial wedding, not its reception. I'm talking about the wedding itself, should not be prohibited in any outdoor environment. The next question really is, it relates to your discretion with regard to entertainment licenses. And I tried to point out in my letter that there's a distinct distinction between entertainment and background music. By definition, entertainment's a form of activity that holds the attention and interest of the audience and gives it pleasure or delight. The art of keeping people entertained, various ways of amusing people. Background music refers to various styles of music or soundscapes primarily intended to be passively listened to. It's not meant to be the main focus of attention, but rather to supplement that which is meant to be focused on. Music is played at low volume and is not the main focus of attention. It's referred to as background music. And it says traditional examples of social gatherings and certain retail venues and so forth. What I'm basically saying is there is a distinction. Background music is not entertainment. Entertainment is a show. It's a band. It's music. It's acoustical. It's designed to attract and keep the attention of those who are in that venue for the purpose of the entertainment. The more important thing is that entertainment is much more difficult to control in terms of its sound. Whereas background music, if it is limited to, and I would really say acoustical music, non-amplified music, is done below the ambient sound levels. It's below the conversational levels of the venue. So what I'm asking the Board of Selectmen, and this is kind of introductory meeting, I'm not asking for an answer tonight, I just want to put this out to the board, that I'd like them to consider the thought that background music, ceremonial music, should be permitted non-acoustically for an outside wedding. That's not entertainment, that's not acoustical, and I think it should be limited to those types of acoustical music which typically accompany a wedding ceremony. It could be violins, ensemble instruments, and so forth. I'm trying to then create that line. Your kind of entertainment it exists for its own sake. Background music is permitted, provided, of course, it maintains sound levels. Now, I want to get to sound levels. The Red Lion Inn has been under a quasi-mandate that no sound can be heard at the property line or at the street line. What's interesting is the ambient sound level is about 55 decibels at, just in the area. At the street line, it's over 70. Outside weddings do not create sounds in excess of that. But I want to point out that there is a basis for the no sound at the property line and no sound at the street line. And that was part of the understanding of the permit, which permitted the barn, which was going to have true entertainment. And that was not supposed to be heard at the property line and so forth. Now, when that was done, back in 2000, 14 years ago, two things were accomplished. Number one, the building was super insulated. The roof and the walls of the barn were super insulated. And two, a device was created which measured the sound at the property line. I don't know whether you're aware that if the sound exceeds the ambient sound, it shuts off musical instruments in both the barn and the, what I would call a salon. But we agree on what that building is, the second floor of the,
Yeah.
over the bakery or the breakfast place.
That looks out
That's
on
the
the
one
pool.
with the
Huh?
French doors?
Not but the one next door.
Yeah, the one with the French doors?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
When they're open.
So if that music gets loud, it also flashes a light in the bars, and it actually disconnects any instrument electronically. And what happens is, it must remain at that level. It will hold it for 5 minutes, and then instruments have to play back under it, it'll trip it again. And that's been an operation today, anybody who wants to see it work. But that's the operation of the barn. And its events and its function and its entertainment. We see no reason not to leave that in place. A recent police report indicated that that's working satisfactorily. What we're now talking about is what noise may the Red Lion make on its property. It's a downtown business district, it's entitled all the rights of any downtown business district. It abuts a residential district. Its rights are not degraded simply because it's next to a residential district. It doesn't have a different set of rights. The town allows music to emanate from all kinds of sources. I live on Atlantic Avenue, I can hear the words from the music circuit songs. You know what I mean? And there are many other venues around the harbor and lightkeepers and so forth, but you can actually hear the music. Now, the neighbors are entitled to be free from unreasonable sound emanating from an abutter. They're not entitled to silence, okay? The law, which I want the board to adopt, so that we have, there are no standards in Cohasset. It's just what Cardac says should be the sound standards. But the fact is that we have excellent noise regulations in Massachusetts, and that's 310 CMR 710. I've given copies of those to the board. And what they say, this is the Massachusetts DEP sound standards, that you may not have noise at the property line. They actually say property line or at the next place of habitation, which exceeds by 10 decibels the ambient noise in the area. So that translates to, in this area here, if the ambient, and I gave a noise analysis that was done on the date in question, September 28th, it's in your papers. If you don't have them, I'll get you more copies. It said it was about 56.6. So that means under the state standards, it could not exceed 66. The street noise is 70, okay? I remember hearing, at the Seattle Statement, it's 137, for the Seahawks. You know, so, I mean, that gives us some idea of the range we're in. And if you read the regulations, it excludes A sounds, but that's a highly technical thing that doesn't really relate to us unless you want me to explain it, the regulations. Because these are the sounds that we normally hear. We hear in terms of frequencies, we hear from a low frequency to a high frequency, very limited in comparison to other species we have. But sound regulations are designed to recognize that as we move out of the spectrums that we normally hear at the middle range, we hear poorly. Our sound ability to hear drops as we move out of the frequencies which humans are designed for. It's like the dog whistle we used to blow to a dog. You couldn't even hear it, but the dog kept running. That's something that's just out of our range. That's not even an A sound. So I'm throwing this at you, a lot of different things here, but what I'd really like the board to do is to have a universal standard on sound. One that is defensible, one that's well recognized, and one that is not really subject to debate or somebody's concept of excessive.
You've been reading about our neighbors in Hingham?
I just picked up on that,
Yeah.
and I'm not quite sure where they're taking it. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Charlie, it sounds to me though that you're not asking us to make a universal ruling on sound as much as you've asked us specifically to change the conditions of the current license such that we endorse having outdoor weddings and that background music, which on its own is a relatively amorphous term, would be included, because I know that background music for weddings could include brass. Okay, and if it did, would that suddenly be background music, or would it be offensive? Again, the property owner exists and pre-existed the reconstruction of the building, and make no debate about it. It's a very nice building, but it's the totality of the behavior of the license holder that really has become the question here. And that has to be part of the consideration. Yes, we have outdoor weddings at beaches on the Common and Government Island, but they don't happen every single weekend. And they are not booked when, in fact, the license holder knew that they were not to be booked, right? So in this case, we have a fair amount of documentation from the license holder that indicated that he knew that he was not to book outdoor weddings, but went ahead and had done so. After having said that he recognized that he wasn't supposed to.
I don't think he said that. I think
well, actually, it's in the report.
No, he signs, they was told to sign an order.
No, that was his verbiage in a letter. And you read that report, and as a matter of fact, it came from a letter that was documented as having been delivered here. So, my question is, while it might be a typical outdoor event, is it one that we necessarily should change our conditions for simply because the license holder would like it?
And in response to that, I say two things. You're holding this license holder to standards you're not holding anyone else in.
Does anyone else that consistently holds events live cheek by jowl next door to a
Well, wait a
residence?
second, but that's a distinction you can't make. Are you saying that this is a lesser property because it abuts a residential area?
No, actually, I'm saying that from the viewpoint of previous boards, and from my viewpoint as well, a pre-existing property does have recognizable rights such that the newly renovated property, commercial in nature, next door cannot suddenly amp up what they've been doing. And from that perspective, I'd say, yeah, that seems absolutely logical.
Okay, well, what you're saying is somehow, everything is pre-existing to everything. The red line pre-exists everyone, if you wanna get into that, in terms of the
The
whole
red
building.
lion or the barn?
Well,
or
the red lion always had the ability to have weddings too.
You understand my distinction in this, and the reason I'm bringing it forward, because I come back to the same thing. You have to take in the totality of the behavior of the license holder when considering this.
I believe that that's how we never get forward, and never get bright lines, and never get this thing straightened out. Because the red line, I believe categorically that the statement that you couldn't have outside weddings is wrong legally, okay? I'm not talking, and I believe that the belief that entertainment covers background music, as opposed to entertainment, is an overreaching there. Now, I think what we have to look at is, does this wedding, and maybe it has to be that specific. You have to say, going forward, what is this company allowed to do? Is it allowed to have an outside wedding? Yes. If it is, what kind of entertainment? I do not believe that should be carried under some generic term as, in quotes, background music or acoustical. I think it should be defined, okay? All right? In other words, so that we don't get up. Now, I will tell you this, that, brass, for a short period of time is not particularly offensive. We all listen to it. The quietest place in the world is cemetery. We hear it regularly. It's not considered, it's part of a ceremony, okay?
You could play taps at a wedding too, I think, but, that's I suppose
Well,
an interpretation.
There's a suggestion there, maybe. But I don't believe, I don't know that brass, should be permitted. I don't think it has to be permitted. There's many ways to have background music for a wedding ceremony, which is just consistent with that. These are typically done by an officiant, and they're typically a 20-minute event.
My point in all of this was, it appears, having been a witness to, not part of, but a witness to many of the discussions that led up to this, that there was purpose in previous boards' actions. And while they may not have been defined as clearly as you or your client might like them, there was a basic purpose. And that basic covenant was, by reports, submitted here.
Only on sound, only for the barn.
No, and again, I go back to the very same document we drew from when you were here last. It was fairly distinct. That the license holder was well aware that outdoor weddings were not part of the entertainment license, and he wasn't to hold them, and yet he'd gone ahead and booked it, and it was part of my questions to Detective Lennon, you may recall.
Well, I will say, I don't wanna.
That's the basis for those original.
I was not involved in a lot of the previous proceedings, but I was involved, and I don't wanna get into that now. See, this is the problem. This is going backwards, okay? And there's a time, if you want, we can get into those things, because I can lay out why the town manager, the previous town manager, had no right to exert that strain on the establishment. That was an illegal order. But I'm not trying to get into that. I'm trying to say, going forward, what are we doing with this?
And I'm very simply making the point that there was a basis upon which this was originally constructed, the licenses.
There's several bases, and there's also, the fact that I came down here at one time, and I don't want to get into it. It's an awkward situation, because what happens is, I said, wait a second, I just want to make sure, where in the town bylaw, where in the entertainment, where does it say there can't be an outdoor wedding? And there wasn't any, so I said, are we clear there can be? And I did check with the staff here, and that was the email to nowhere, okay, with the wrong address on it. But that was as a result of conversations which I had prior to the event you're referring to, okay, and I gave that email to the Red Lion, saying that there is an understanding you could have an outside wedding. That was the last event that occurred prior to that, not anything previously. Okay, and I'll discuss that with you in as much detail as you want, but I think it's.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Okay. Diana?
No, I was gonna try to wrap us up, but you speak first.
Well, I was gonna try to wrap us up too.
Good.
I don't think that this is the opportunity we have to discuss what we've previously discussed. I think that, clearly there are some concerns that need to be addressed, and I think that the Red Lion Inn is making an effort coming forward. I do have some concerns about whether the board can put restrictions on one business that we don't have on another business. And I'm inclined to be more interested in not modifying the Red Lion Inn's license, but addressing the bigger issue of what a noise bylaw should be and how it affects the businesses already within Cohasset. I'm very concerned about establishing standards or bylaws that are preferential to any neighborhood as opposed to other neighborhoods. You know, you referenced how you can hear the music circus. Well, they're smack dab in the middle of a residential area. I can hear them. Depending on which way the wind is blowing, most people in Cohasset can hear it on any night. So we need to, I think, step back and take a deep breath and look at how can we deliberately eliminate the misunderstandings or the opportunities for misunderstandings in standards that we might set or limitations that we might put within any kind of an entertainment license. Is that something, Mr. Chairman, that we
Well, I
can-
see, that was my real starting point here tonight, if we could take it off into the more specifics, the red line. But I do believe that we are talking about standards which have to be of universal application.
I think maybe a good place to start would be an offline conversation with you and Chris on some of the details and drilling down on this and see what we can come up with that would level the playing ground for everybody in town.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yeah, it's just to piggyback on what Karen was saying, I definitely think we should look at defining things a little bit more clearly. The whole time we were talking, I went to a wedding once, and this is the craziest thing. They had these massive speakers, like this big, subwoofers, and they played Eye of the Tiger, you know, boom, boom, boom. So, you know, and it was a wedding, and the bride marched down to Eye of the, so anything is possible, and I do think that the more we can clarify things and have universal application, the better. So I definitely would like to have that conversation. I would also like, kind of in the background, research that we do before we have this discussion again is, you know, where are there other outdoor weddings? Is there anything, is there problems elsewhere? You know, are there any other establishments having them on a regular basis or having some kind of, what happens if a spontaneous wedding shows up? Well, Sandy Beach is not a good example because it's private
They have them
property.
down at the harbor, but they have to get approval from the
I
office.
see them regularly in front of the bell.
Yep,
Yeah.
but I just
You
think
know
we
what I
need to
mean?
understand
Next to the
really
sailing club.
what the parameters are on that, because I don't know if somebody can just show up
Yeah,
with
I-
50 chairs and put it out in
I
front of
think
the lighthouse
also,
replica.
The Atlantica I don't know whether it's Atlantica, but I think that there's the opportunity to have weddings on Lawrence Wharf,
Yeah,
maybe with a reception at Atlantica
I'd
or
just like to
something. So
know
I think
sort
it's a
of where it
bigger-
happens so we
a
understand.
bigger issue, and I just wanna make
Yeah.
sure that whatever we do is consistent,
Yes,
that we don't single anybody out or favor anybody in any way.
I
in terms of the
also-
global,
I also
Yeah.
agree, because there are weddings held other places, they might even be held in Rocky Beach, I don't know.
They
And-
held in Whitney Woods.
and,
I
uh,
hope we don't stop that, I kinda
No,
like the
no,
idea,
no,
but,
yeah,
but
no,
that's a
it's
political
very nice.
statement, not
But
a legal one.
I think you've got to look at, the effect of the neighborhood and the business itself, and, finding out where all the others are, a bylaw that would be applicable to everybody. Just because you have a building doesn't mean, you can't have it outside, and I think we just got to, look over the town and have you work with
Well,
with
there are
Chris, yeah.
also unintended consequences, which is why I think we need to do this deliberately, because if we set a noise bylaw, the school's not gonna be able to empty their dumpsters behind my house.
yeah, and I don't think that's, I
But
think
they
we
don't,
just
do
need
they
to
need an
define
entertainment
things.
license for that? No,
I'm
they-
sorry?
I just, I think we need to just sit down with some of these terms, define it, and a little bit to Steve's point, I mean, there is a history as to why we are where we are, particularly with the Red Lion Inn, why those standards were put in place, and I think that's something we do need to address as well.
As long as they're not punitive, as long as they're not sanctions on top of sanctions that have been
Absolutely.
paid for,
Which-
and that's what I'm worried
Which
about.
is why
We-
defining everything
But,
and then.
but why don't I take
I
the
think this
chair's
has been
advice?
productive and,
Yeah.
it's starting the conversation, that's what we need to do is have ongoing dialogue and look at these issues, and thank you for coming in, Charlie.
Thank you very much,
Yeah,
appreciate
thank
the
you,
time,
Charlie.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Want to go
OPEB.
back to, did we do all?
Oh, unless the,
We did the kids.
Yeah, but the McCourt,
We did-
McCourt
McCourt
Foundation,
didn't come
anybody
in.
from McCourt Foundation here?
And I'm wondering if she's not here because
Okay,
it's the annual
we'll
event.
just, yeah, we'll come back to that a little bit, let's do the OPEB. Okay. We were
evening.
doing great on our schedule about,
Well, I'll try and
15
keep you
minutes
on it.
into the meeting, but
I'll try to keep you on it. I'm Tim Davis, and I'm representing OPEB along with my colleague John Chapman and advisor Paul. A lot of what you will see this evening, and I trust you either have a copy of this.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, do the selectmen have? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so anyone else who would like a copy may.
But everyone has a, there was a little, Karen mentioned that there was a little block on one of these, so I
Oh,
gave
yeah.
you another copy of that one page.
Oh, yeah, I could use that.
It should be, it should be under,
I know you
it should
gave
be
it to me and now I
at your
can't find
should be
it.
under the
It's in
shade.
front of us, with the papers.
Oh,
No.
it's on the desk.
It's on the desk.
Or maybe,
Yeah, I left one in front of everybody.
Maybe underneath.
I can make another copy, so they just blocked that one. Yes.
Okay. We're all on the same page?
It's also up behind you if you wanna see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of what we're gonna talk about this evening, we've already reviewed the last time I was here. You know what OPEB is, other post-employment benefits. We are the OPEB committee created by the Board of Selectmen about 6 months ago, so we're about 6 months into this process. The members of the committee appear on slide 3. In addition to those members, all of whom I think you know or have met at some point along the way, Brian Host also is an advisory member of the committee from the Capital Budget Committee. Just so that we set a floor on what we're talking about, I'm going to be asking you for 2 actions by the end of this meeting. And the reason I am is because I think none of us want to take the do-nothing approach of doing nothing about the continuing increase of unfunded liabilities for post-employment benefits. As you can see in this slide, while today the unfunded liabilities of OPEB is approximately the size of the town budget, in about 20 years, it will be almost double the size of the town budget if we do nothing. The next slide shows what the impact is on the budget. And again, we're here this evening to work with you to have a positive impact on the town of Cohasset budget. We'd like to work with you so that as the town budget grows by 2.5% to 3% a year, that we actually decrease the liability for post-employment benefits. If we do not, on this slide, you'll see that while we have approximately 10% of our budget going to those post-employment benefits, by the year 2043, 30% of the budget would be going to that.
And other health insurance.
And other health insurance, yes. So the options we have, number 1 are do nothing, which I am assuming that none of us want to take that approach. Number 2, to reform the budgets to sustainable levels, the benefits to sustainable levels, and that's for both current employees and retirees. And these are all town employees, including teachers, public safety, and other town employees. And 3, to increase the OPEB trust fund balances, or some combination thereof. Just to emphasize the do-nothing road to dealing with this, if we did nothing, we would be forced over time to reduce spending in other parts of the budget, or have increased operational tax overruns. The total unfunded liability would increase from approximately $36 million today in 2013, 2014, to $180 million in 2043. So you can see it's a very significant issue we're dealing with here. The percentage of revenue available to fund operation would go from where it is today at 90% in 2014 to only 70% in 2043. The other thing that is very important to consider is that since GASB has been involved in directing the accounting principles for town finances, The rating agencies are taking a very strong look at what towns are doing with their OPEB situation. If we do nothing, not only will there be a risk of a bond rating downgrade, it is almost certain that the bond rating agencies would downgrade the Cohasset bond rating. So the recommended approach, and this is exactly what I brought to you a month or so ago, is number one, to work with the Board of Selectmen and the town manager, I might add, to develop potential solutions. That we have been doing since we started 6 months ago. And then secondly, to present recommendations, which I will do this evening. We're a few days ahead of schedule because it's still January. And to seek town support for their recommendations, if necessary, at the town meeting. And to implement recommendations beginning in May and June of this year. And that would then, the process would continue out for some time because it's a long, involved process, as I'll get into briefly. Our initial recommendations are number one, which really is not controversial in any way, and this is one I think you may be aware of, but all of the current employees that are on the Maya plans, which is the Massachusetts insurance plans, can be moved to a new Maya plan as recommended by Maya and proposed to the town of Cohasset. I believe that the town manager can do this, but what I'm asking for this evening is for your support of our town manager to do this. And the representative from Maya will work very closely with the town manager so that all employees understand exactly what the impact would be. From what I can see, it would be de minimis. It is simply a cost saving under the new plans. Benefits would change little, if any. So I think this is something we can move quickly on, and I've talked with Chris about this, and I would just like to have your support of him moving in that direction. The second is a little bit more involved. And this, a little bit of history. In 2009, the town of Cohasset elected to move the retired teachers' insurance to a GIC plan. They did that, from what I can gather, as an administrative expediency, because the GIC plan is administered totally, and the town does not have to get involved in that. Since that time, since 2009, the GIC plan has become very expensive, and there are better plans from the town's perspective, certainly, in the Maya insurance plans. So what we at the OPEB committee are recommending is that the Board of Selectmen move to approve moving from the GIC, these are retired teachers now, the GIC plan to the Maya plans. There are a number of reasons why that would benefit the town of Cohasset. Number one, the costs are less, and number two, it gives the town the ability to move the contribution on the part of the individual to closer to a 50-50 contribution, which all towns that are looking closely at this are moving to. Chris and I met today with the town administrator of Hingham. They have moved totally to 50-50. Basically what he told us was that any town that does not have a 50-50 contribution with their employees is basically unfunding their liabilities. They are heading deeper into the hole. Now I say this a little bit more involved. It is. We cannot do this with the stroke of a pen. This is a long process, and let me say the first part of the process would take several months, and it would take the Board of Selectmen holding public hearings. There's a 31-day notice period so that the retired teachers and survivors can come to that meeting. the board has to listen to what they have to say, has to consider it, and then after the meeting, conduct a vote. The vote is really an expression of opinion. It is not a legally binding vote on the part of the retired teachers. And then the certified copy of that vote, if the Board of Selectmen vote to continue to go forward, certified copy is sent to the GIC. Once received, the GIC will coordinate with the town to move from one insurance policy to the MIA policy. There are consultants to the town that would work with the Board of Selectmen and the town manager and the employees to make sure that this went as smoothly as possible. If there are economic discrepancies between the plans, there are mitigation issues that could be addressed and discussed with the people impacted. And I can tell you that it is absolutely the concern on the part of the OPED committee that we do whatever we can to minimize the impact, particularly on the retired individuals who have been committed a benefit. This is something that we are all, as citizens of Cohasset, taxpayers and employees together, are going to have to address, because it's going to start from the time employees become employees of the town, whether they're teachers or public safety or other employees, to the time they retire. So there's a whole gamut of this that has to be addressed, and addressed fairly and addressed reasonably. But let there be no question, we must address it if we're going to bring this under control. The next page shows you the current census and liability and how the recommended changes would take place in terms of the costs. Now let me tell you that behind this slide, there are reams of datum, I should say, and pages that we on the committee have gone through. And this really is an amalgamation, if you will, and somewhat of an average of the cost savings, because there are many different plans and different parts of the plans that go into this. But the bottom line is, if you approve doing what I'm asking you to do this evening, ultimately, just by that, we will have a annual saving of $328,000 a year. That is the beginning. It's significant, and I ask for your recommendation and your vote to go forward. The next step, and this is a long process, the future recommendations would come from the OPED committee, and what we would do is to work closely with the town manager and make regular reports to you. But there are ways to reduce the ongoing cost of health care, and they include the plan benefits themselves, the contribution between the town and the employee, the co-pays that are involved, and then there are other parts. As you know, the medical insurance is a complicated process. There are ways to mitigate the financial impact, and I mentioned that we are certainly concerned about this, and we will do what we can to make sure that we ease the impact as best as we can, still keeping in mind what the objective is here. But we can phase in plans over time. We can phase in the changes in the plans over time. We can create a mitigation fund that will help offset the cost impact. And then there are ways to address the current unfunded liability, which we also must address. We can have a tax override to increase the size of the OPED fund. Nobody likes a cost override, but that's one way we can address that. Or we could borrow money to fund the OPED liability. So we will work with the town manager to come up with recommendations in the future to address this. So that's where we are today. We've been at this for 6 months, and I can assure you that every member of the committee is prepared to continue to work with you and Chris to get to the ultimate goal.
I think it would be helpful if we could get some idea on some of these mitigation numbers, how they look, and, you know, obviously if we're gonna go forward and start a townwide discussion on this with retirees and employees, we really need to be on top of that, and,
I don't quite understand,
well, the
Fred, what do you mean
phase-in,
by that?
phase-in
You want
plans,
some more specifics on the,
how the number, you know,
phase-in
something
work.
to propose to people as options that they'll, you know, be voting on at this future meeting, so they understand what type of mitigation we could possibly do, and,
I can tell you, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
I have sat with these folks, and again, I'm only in my third week, so I'm coming up to speed fairly fast. We've met, and we've had some conversations, and I know that they've done some great work here. And I met with Mary, and we've started conversations as well, and, you know, we spoke with Hingham today, and I reached out to town council today. I'm meeting with the folks from MIA, I think next week. So I'm trying to get up to speed, and I have a learning curve that I have to catch up to you guys on. There are processes to go through, and I'm trying to make sure that, you know, the devil sometimes in the details to make sure you hit things exactly right. You've laid out a nice path. Now I have to make sure that we found the bricks in the path, right?
What I was gonna say, Fred, is that sort of the policy of going forward, you wanna take that step, mitigation is one of the elements of it. It becomes a very, I think, relatively technical process, that will need Chris's help, and he'll need counsel, and maybe the Maya consultants, but folks who sort of know this business, know the law, in order to structure a phase-in and or mitigation plan that's actually reasonable to implement and administer. And we can sit here and spin off ideas like you reduce, you know, 5% a year, you do it for people over 80, you know, we can spin out all sorts of ideas, but before we start doing that, we really need sort of the staff support of council and people who understand the laws involved.
One of the things we started with today, I mean, we've already spoken with folks in Hingham, they're sending materials over, which I don't have yet, if they went through this process. And it took months, they negotiated, they had to go through sets of negotiations, and, because it doesn't just involve the retired teachers, it involves the current ones too. And obviously, it's gonna involve the school committee, and, you're on the school, you're chairman of the school committee, so I'm gathering that you're ready to jump into the breach. You know, again, as you point out, Mr. Chairman, there's a lot of, details that have to be kind of, looked into. And again, I think that there's a lot, I think with, you know, you've laid this great foundation out of, to build the rest of the OPEB structure. And also, by the way, in terms of, you know, even the investment part, I was meeting with Paula earlier today, and she's actually downstairs in another meeting right now, talking about investing the OPEB fund in a way to get the most possible return. So that's something that's also being worked on right now. So a lot of moving pieces.
I have a few questions, if I could, and Chris, obviously I don't expect that you're gonna know some of these answers, but we, I believe, renegotiate our rate every year for, health insurance, right? So that's something coming up.
Yes,
It's
it is.
one little piece, and a fractional piece, and we benefited greatly last year and probably won't have the same luck this year. Moving the Maya, moving the people from GIC into the Maya plans, I think you're recommending, there's other plans out there that are actually, would save us money, is that right?
Well,
Cause it says moving from the employees in the Maya plans to the new Maya recommended plans.
There are two recommended Maya plans that are new,
Okay.
different from what existed, but it's moving from one Maya plan to another Maya plan.
Okay.
That's step one, and that should not be an issue.
That's not, yeah.
That just has to be done prior to the beginning of the next insurance year, which I believe is the end of June.
Okay, so on that, if we were to go the route, and I know this is the cart well before the horse, but if we end up moving the teachers into the same plan, I would imagine we would just benefit there by having a greater pool. Does it work that way? You know, so
I
instead of
don't-
300 people, now we have 600 people.
I'm not sure, because we're part of a much bigger pool anyway.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that would be the impact.
The other thing is that we've talked about, not last fiscal year, but in anticipation of the previous fiscal year, we talked about other insurance plans. There's a group plan on the South Shore, Fred, you know which one I'm talking about? It's like Pilgrim or
Mayflower.
Mayflower. You know, is that something we're looking at too?
There's a big buy-in for that, I think.
There is, but I was, you know, at the MMA conference, everybody I talked to said, it's the way to go, it's way cheaper.
Yeah.
The buy-in up front is a lot,
Hingham
but,
uses that, there are a number of South Shore towns that use that. I'm sure that Chris will look at the benefit of that.
Because
I
there's
talked to
just-
Chris about
Yeah.
reaching out to some of the people that were on
Mayflower.
our committee that looked at this earlier,
Mayflower program.
town employees, and we had a little subgroup on it. So he's gonna be touching base with them, and so we do need to kinda get input from across employee base also on this.
this was, obviously the big topic at the Mass Municipal Conference that, we were at this weekend, and, if, in your work the last 6 months, have you paid any attention to some of that other stuff, the kind of the statewide issues, like moving the eligibility ages and years of service, or is that really
The
in
things
another,
that would require state law changes.
and that's all state law change?
We've been sort of aware of it, but not
Yeah.
focused on it because it's not
'Cause
within
it's not applicable,
your
yeah.
control.
Yeah.
The good and the bad news is, there is a lot that can be done for all of the municipalities at the state
At
level.
the state level.
Right.
But it is,
Heavy lift.
it's stalled, and it's just so depressing,
It is, and what we're trying to do is address what
we can
we
do
here in
right
this
now,
room can do.
right,
And I think it's important to do that. As John said, there are many details that have to get worked out, but we're looking to you to say, okay, let's
go
do this.
forward with some of these.
Let's not wait another year and get another year into the hole
Behind.
before we.
We'll just, then I'll be quiet, just one last point to that is, this is not directed at the OPEB committee, but all of us, the citizens, I mean, we have a responsibility to see this taken care of at the state level too, so I encourage everybody to pay attention, you know, call your reps and try to get something done at some point that makes sense, so.
Yeah.
I wanna thank you, I think that your committee has done a lot of good work and brought some good information forward. I'm a little uncomfortable, I'm behind it, I think that we need to, but if the first change that we can make is not until the June 30th in the upcoming budget, I'm a little uncomfortable in giving Chris marching orders when he's only been here for a short time. I wanna give him the opportunity, the time to research everything and be comfortable, with the decisions that we're going to make. I also wanna make sure that when we do this, doing the right thing, I wanna make sure we do it the right way, so that we proceed in a way that, educates and creates a consensus and a buy-in with both the retired and the active employees. I'm very much against sort of a, you know, a fiat kind of thing, even if it's the right thing to do, and, I know that the town employees also have the best interests of the town, so I believe that we can come to a consensus in that. And I also wanna provide, Chris with the opportunity and the board, all of us, to do the right thing the right way, and I'm a little bit nervous about just committing to anything here tonight, so it's a little early for me.
Can I just mention, these are just the recommendations, this is really just letting this to start. At pretty much any time, if the decision is such that you don't wanna go forward with the implementation of it, this is at least the first step towards letting it be implemented, at least in the first motion towards what's available. Gives the flexibility of the town.
So is what, Tim, is what you're looking for us to do is to basically say, these sound like great ideas, please go get us the information?
Number one is, yes, that sounds like a great idea. We support Chris doing what has to be done to
Get back to us
get
to
that done.
start
And whether it
these.
turns out that it's Mayflower instead of Maya, so be it. But right now, we are paying some huge percent more for insurance that we don't need for these employees, and it makes no sense.
So
I
we're
mean,
not
Chris
telling
will
him
very
to-
quickly come to that conclusion.
We're not necessarily, if we were to vote something tonight, we're not necessarily saying move all the employees, but go get us all the information so that we can possibly make this official decision.
Well, the first recommendation here, you don't have to do anything other than say, yes, I support the idea, the concept of Chris doing the best thing for the town and the employees that he can do. I can't make it any.
Yeah, I think,
That's number one.
Yep.
yeah,
The second one, you've been aware of, I think, for some time.
Yep.
And it's been recommended for some time that we move from GIC to Maya. I think you've heard that. And, you know, we can wait till you have more information, we can do all kinds of things, but if we don't move in that direction, again, we're just digging ourselves a greater hole.
To the board, I've had the education in working with this group, most recently. What we're talking about tonight is adopting a policy, not a framework, not a set of directions, but a policy. It's a concept that says, we recognize that that OPEB is a fast-growing monster. And, you know, it works on, it works on the idea of compounding. Doesn't, you know, small numbers become big numbers when the baseline is a big number to start with. Setting the policy forward that says, you know what, we want to take a positive action for this, is what the OPEB committee is asking for tonight. He's not, he's, the OPEB committee is essentially asking us to lay the keystone of the foundation, not decorate the living room, okay? That comes later, but without laying the keystone of the foundation, the house will not get built. And in this case, we're actually talking about constructing something that essentially saves the town that you love, because otherwise, there's a whole lot of stuff that this town will not be able to afford, including the cross-section of people that we often are concerned about. Our older folks who live on a fixed income, the younger families who are trying to seek their way into this town and in the school district that we so proudly point to. They're not gonna be able to live here, because to be able to afford that expense is going to cost an extraordinary amount.
Chris?
Yeah, I think that, if I may recommend to you, I think you should accept the report with thanks.
Yes.
And then charge me with going forward to come up, to investigate this further and come back to you with, you know, the steps that would need to be taken and the
this.
ramifications of some of these things, to move forward. And again, I think, you know, we've already begun the conversation. Again, I was digging through chapter 32B today online and speak with councils, and there's a lot to learn about the process. And again, you know, while Hingham did it and other people have done it, it wasn't an easy lift on some of these things. I mean, it got done, but I think we wanna make sure that we don't repeat bad, you know, they're promising to give me a roadmap and some of the, you know, the process steps, so we can have that conversation. And obviously, you know, we're gonna need to talk with the schools a lot about this, cause it doesn't just affect the retirees on that piece, it affects the existing teachers and what they're gonna be doing, and I think that we need to have a conversation about how to approach that.
Right.
Again, it's a reasonable thing to talk about, and we're not the first people to talk about it, but there's gonna be some, and again, it also is going to help open up, you know, it's gonna help save money, not only today, but for the long term, and help fund a liability that's most certainly there and growing. And it all, you know, it's something that that has to be addressed, but so if you accept the report with gracious thanks, and charge us to go forward and have more conversations, to come back to you with some more
Very good.
hard and fast
Martha?
recommendations, does that
Yes.
sound reasonable?
I'd like to ask, to amend this, to change to the Maya plans, bringing, discussing, the Mayflower, other plans, to see if it's,
Look at all the options.
look at the options.
Yeah.
And I know that if we don't do anything, we may end up down the road, bankruptcy, like Detroit and all those places,
Yeah.
because this is such a big
Yeah,
thing.
just one second.
Well, I think, absolutely, I think Chris will look at that.
Yeah.
Without any question. It's just, right now, we have a Maya plan.
I agree with you.
There's a proposed Maya plan that's gonna save us a considerable amount of money.
Mhm.
So if we do nothing else,
Oh, no.
just do that, it's gonna save us money, and
So I
nobody's
agree
gonna.
with you, we should go
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so,
agree.
just with respect to the second piece, which is the more complicated
Yes.
thing, which does require a series of, hearings and mitigation you know, looking at litigation things, I mean, I would think that this is something we should probably have a substantive discussion on, like, you know, sooner rather than later. The first one is basically a concept that we're shopping around every year for the best insurance plan. So that has to happen, and it will happen, and this year we're doing it, trying to get everybody on that same plan. The second piece of this is more complicated, and I hate to say it, but, you know, I really wanna have this conversation next meeting and the next meeting, so that when there is a 30-day, you know, noticed hearing, that we have everything queued up as best we can to make the decisions we need to make by town meeting, which is gonna be here before you know it.
Yes, and I'm just
Time is
asking
of
you
the
to do that,
essence.
to start that process,
Yep.
to commit to going forward with that process. And let me just say one other thing in response to your concern about making sure that we're fair to everybody here. Right now, these insurance costs are growing at 5% a year, and are expected to grow at 5% a year, when our budget can only grow at 2.5 to 3% a year.
I understand all that, and that's,
So,
I didn't mean it that way.
somebody is gonna get a change in their benefits.
If I misspoke, I
No,
apologize.
I just wanted to address
I'm not
it.
opposed to any of
Okay.
this. What I just wanna make sure is that things don't happen without education and consensus
No,
building.
absolutely.
And I also apologize because I think that my confusion was in that you were asking us to do this. It says, move all employees, move all retired teachers. So if that's my mistake in misinterpreting it, I apologize.
Not at all.
I'm perfectly comfortable in tasking Chris, adopting his motion.
Well, to continue the process with some degree of deadlines and benchmarks, maybe we should talk about, I'm planning to meet with the folks, we're trying to set up a meeting now with the Maya folks to have some conversations, and, you know, and also I'll talk to, folks about Mayflower, and, in fact, there's even another way to get back at the GIC, I'm not recommending that at all, with a different payment process. So let me explore that. I think it's gonna take me a couple of weeks, I think, to do that. I'll report back to you, I don't know, mid-February, and then we can also in that same time frame look at the other option, you know, these other bigger issues, and report back to you.
Okay, Paul, real quick, you,
Yeah, I was the chairman of the Health Advisory Committee for the town, and a couple of things the town should know is, it was a town meeting that actually brought in for the teachers to pay 15% in retirement, and for the regular employees to pay 50%, which obviously over the period of time has caused a huge liability, okay? And my thing is, you know, the town has, this is given a town meeting, the town versus the employees has some responsibility in this, okay? Another thing too is, when I was the health advisory chairman, we saved the town quite a bit of money twice on health insurance. And the last time we did, there was a separate deal cut behind our backs with the teachers for co-pays. And I was the chairman of that committee, and I wasn't even advised of that. So, you know, I just wanna make sure that whatever we do is above board. And another thing that the committee is mentioning is, you were allowed to put people in different health insurances, yes, for cost. But as far as changing the percentages, that's bargainable with the unions. It's not something that can be done at town meeting. It's something that completely is done by the unions. And so, you know, one thing you have to be careful here is, you have teachers who are retired and are paying 15%, and you're gonna be asking them to come up with 35% more in retirement. I was wondering if you could grandfather and start new, I mean, with some of the retirees now, just to make it fair.
well, that's one of the mitigation options we're looking
Yeah,
at.
absolutely.
Absolutely, I mean, we hear you loud and clear, and that's absolutely a concern of the committee.
But the information from the committee about not going to the GIC, that was our biggest thing, because all the towns were going to the GIC. And our committee actually was very strongly against going to GIC, because we saw the problems with it. And there's huge problems, so, you know, you can cut insurance and do the right thing, but it's a process, and it has to be done through bargaining, that's all I'm saying.
May I ask a question? When did this happen? I'm trying to get a time frame.
This happened when Steve Lombard was here.
2011
211, yeah.
into
Oh, it's that
FY
recent?
12,
Oh,
yeah.
oh,
I think the records actually shows, what I saw is that in 2009 was when the town went to GIC, somewhere in that timeframe.
Chris, if I recall, Fred, you might remember, I think Chris, Steve, put together the insurance, Mary, were you on that too? No, Bill was, put together, and it was under, a Mass General law, I think, that allowed us to do this. We either had to do, the state was gonna tell us what to do, or we had to come up with a plan that was comparable to GIC. And there was an employee committee that did come up with a plan. They put together quite a nice plan, which did save the town some money, and that was voted on at the town meeting. But I think that the original one back in '88, do you remember, Martha?
No, I don't remember that at all. I think it
We've actually had two, we actually had the one in, I believe, 2011, and then we had, the deal we cut with, Mr. Milanowski last year. There were two different times.
Well, way back when, we must have adopted
Well, it was
32B,
Yeah.
and we need to
Right.
determine how that happened, because we can only rescind it in the same way that we adopted it.
Well, see, some of the things were changing when I left the board. It changed to a regular town manager. I was under an executive secretary, so there was a lot of different things that occurred, and I don't recall that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
May I move that we, accept the report, with, the general recommendation on the first bullet point, that, the exploration be made of moving from the existing current Maya plan to, a review of competitive plans, including alternative Maya plans. And that, we also accept the recommendation on the second item to be investigated by the town manager, for the purposes of, rescinding section 11E of chapter 32B. Town manager to report back to the Board of Selectmen. When?
On the second part, maybe, I think you don't meet again till the end of February, so maybe give me
We're gonna have to have another
February.
meeting.
No, we're gonna have
another
the
meeting.
beginning
We're
of
gonna have another
February.
meeting.
The beginning of February is next week.
Yeah,
Right.
End of January.
Chris gonna need some time to investigate.
No, that's why that's why I'm asking.
Well, why don't you give me the second meeting in February, which I think is the end of February, because I think it's.
Well, we
Okay.
may
Fair?
have to have a-
Yeah, no, I just wanna make sure that we stay on track
Yeah, yeah,
with.
so do it the
with
second
this.
meeting, which is the 25th, I think. Yeah, that still
Okay.
gives us time.
So reporting back to the
Don't want you to dawdle.
Board of Selectmen
We're on.
for the second meeting in February with regard, with summation of, the steps, potential consequences and considerations for, rescission of section 11E,
Second.
32B.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second discussion.
Could I just amend that?
Well,
Go ahead.
well, I just have some concern about, I know it has to move forward, I'm not trying to say it isn't. Chris has got a lot to do in the next few weeks, he's got the budget, and he's got this, so to commit him to come back with a final answer,
I'm not asking him to come back with a final answer, I'm asking him to come back with, I think the verbiage I
Information.
used was come back with, considerations, recommendations,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
okay, I thought I heard the
It's
word
our-
summation in there, and
Yeah, but
that's,
it's for us to make that final consideration,
oh,
right?
absolutely.
This is a policy decision, so it's really, Chris and I were talking on the phone today, and he started to read section 32B.
Yeah, I have it right here.
And, he said, hey, this is gonna take me a little bit. And,
It's
it's,
confusing.
but I appreciate that. The point is that if we wanna make an informed decision, I do believe we're gonna need some assistance to do it.
Oh, absolutely, it has to be Chris.
But at the same time, if we don't go forward with this, we're not gonna get the chance to make an informed
I
decision.
think everybody understands the risks involved with doing nothing. I think that's why the town and the selectmen have committed to putting $250,000 a year into the OPEB trust fund. We're not in favor of doing nothing, and we wanna do everything we can. Having said that, there needs to be consensus building amongst all the town employees and retirees, and we need to bring them along with us and have these discussions in fairness at a pace that they can go along with. So it may not move as fast as we would like, but we wanna move it forward. And so I think the intention is to let's start the discussions, and tonight is a good start. last month was a good start when you came in, and we'll continue on, and Chris will
He has
put
his
this
marching orders.
Yeah,
as a, you know, a priority with some other priorities that we have.
I'd like to sort of second that, because the last slide is not part of this recommendation, but sort of next steps. This is just a first step, and all of the next steps are gonna require collaborative work with the employees. Because it's all part of compensation, that's what we're talking here, is how are you, what's compensation gonna be and how are you gonna structure it? So you're right, you've gotta follow that process now, you don't wanna poison the well for those later, more important conversations that will follow.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just wanted to, maybe amend or reshape the very end of your, motion, which you ended it with
Wordsmithing.
rescinding,
Always
I know, I
wordsmithing.
have to wordsmith, but rescinding chapter 32B, because that may not, I mean, I intellectually believe that's gonna have to happen, but I don't know if rescission's the right word, or if it's that, so I would just rather leave it open, the motion, so that we would get all the plans and a summation and a course of action and a timetable for, moving everybody onto the same plan. Would that work? I know, I'm talking in circles.
Well, what I believe I'd asked for in the motion, beyond accepting the report, was in essence an investigation of rescinding section 11E of 32B, an investigation, not a rescission.
I think I can sum this up, I mean, our intention is to accept the report and do all the due diligence we need to do in building consensus.
To potentially take
to
action
move
on these
forward. I think
recommendations.
beyond that, we can't really specify actions because we don't have enough information right now.
We're not, I don't believe the motion is asking for the board to act at the moment. But Tracy, can I bother you?
If you're gonna ask me
She's
to
gonna
read
listen
it,
for the
then-
tape. My only thing, all I'm
Just talk
saying
for
is,
4
I don't
minutes
know,
straight.
I don't know
You're
if
gonna
that
ask me to repeat
rescission's
it.
the right word, lawyers, I just wanna make sure
Opt out
that,
of would be another way to.
right,
Yeah.
opting out of whatever we need to opt out of
Right.
to accomplish these goals.
May I
Hold
reformulate
on
my?
a second.
I think I got the gist basically is to really cook it down simply. You're asking me to conduct due diligence on the report, come back with whatever analysis is necessary to be able to get you to the next step. And I mean, I'm super simplifying
Yes.
a more complicated approach, but that's what
Yes.
you're
I
asking.
am,
He gets it.
Tracy, I move that
Okay.
we
That.
accept the OPEB committee's report as presented. That we further request that the town manager perform necessary due diligence on the recommendations put forward by the OPEB committee, making an initial report back to the board by our second meeting, February 2014.
Second.
You're good.
I just
Third.
listened.
Okay, so we have, any further discussion? One second, Agnes, you had your hand up,
No, thank you.
okay.
I have one question. Just one question. Are you going to tell me with just that one thing?
We're not planning a town meeting right now, we're at the beginning stage of this.
Okay.
Yeah, so, okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Tim, have a good trip.
Thanks.
I'll send you a picture.
Please do.
Good point.
Okay. Town manager report.
It's up to me. I want to thank everybody for the welcome that I've had the last couple of weeks. People have been very, very open, very friendly, very accommodating. I've met with folks from across the spectrum, literally all of you, obviously, and staff. Staff, schools, historical society, housing authority, police, fire. Really a wonderful cross section of people, and I've met everyone I've met says welcome, thank you, how can I help you? It's been really a great experience, and I've been so booked that Tracy and Jen are trying to calm me down so I can spend a little more time in the office reading and reviewing. But So you know, we've been speaking and updating, you know, I'm hoping to put together a little written report on a more regular basis, so you can know what I've been up to, because I'm not gonna get to see all of you all the time, and, to keep, you know, you up to speed on what I'm doing, where I'm going, and who I'm seeing. But so far, it's been a very positive whirlwind the last 2 weeks. In fact, I was on TV as recently as last night. I was filming the show, and apparently it was on tonight, so.
Oh. Is it competing against us live?
I was a prequel. I was a
The
prequel to the
state-
Selectman.
prequel.
People are gonna get a lot of me for them for today.
Sequels are good too.
You know, I was at the MMA last week too. I got a chance to meet a lot of the folks who work for us in various capacities, which was great, and I'm following up with a lot of them this week. You know, there's a lot on my plate ahead, which is great. But, and even just this afternoon, I was meeting with this morning, meeting with our financial advisor and going over those issues and going over some budget questions with Mary and Paula. So, you know, I've picked up a lot. I mean, I have a pretty steep curve, but I'm making my way up it. So that's, at this point, you know, that's kind of where I am. And, you know, again, I want to thank everybody. It's been a wonderful welcome. I want to thank all of you, and I'm looking forward to a very long and prosperous tenure. So.
Here, here.
You wanna do the, town training on the liquor license?
Yes, if I could have the chief come up. Chief Quigley had presented, a training opportunity, which I know I would most certainly be interested in, which I'd like to have him explain to all of you.
Hey, good evening, guys.
Hello, good evening.
I'll be real short and sweet. I've put together a training program for for my command staff, the sergeants, the lieutenant, and the liquor inspectors. And this person is he's a former senior investigator for the ABCC. His name is Jim Staples. He owns a company called JVS Professional Services, and he's an expert in all things having to do with liquor licensing and Chapter 138 of the general laws. So he comes in, this is part of our in-service training, but I thought it'd be a great opportunity to invite the board to attend this training with the officers, and get everybody sort of on the same page, and you know, any questions you have about liquor licenses, one-day licenses, anything having to do with hearings or anything like that, he would be the person to answer it. So he's offered 2 dates, and they are, it's on a Saturday, February 22nd and March 1st are the 2 dates. It's a 3-hour training. It'd be noon to 3. Again, the dates available are 2/22 and 3/1.
And
also-
lightkeepers? Yeah.
No, we'd probably do it at the EOC.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It says here, town-wide, so that means anyone could come to.
Well, the intention there was anybody at town hall that's dealing with liquor
Oh, you
licensing
mean
issues.
you mean town-
employees.
You mean employees, well, it
Yeah.
was misleading, because
Yeah.
I had several calls on this.
Yeah, this would be, I'd like to open it up to Tracy and Jen
Oh, yeah,
Orem,
employees.
as well as town council, and
Yeah.
of course Chris.
So, yeah.
I just, I think that that's terrific, and thank you very much for offering it and bringing it to us. I just wonder, is there something from ABC that's available to us?
They don't currently, they don't, they're working on the skeleton, with the skeleton staff right now. So, this is about the best you can do. And, Mr. Staples he actually does the police training. He trains in the police academies and consults, for different towns. He's about the best you can get in the state.
For me, March 1st, I would like to participate. March 1st works, but don't revolve around me either. We could get the consensus date.
22nd is the end of school vacation. I know I won't be here,
No,
so.
we don't get involved, March 1st would be fine.
Yeah, okay. Does that work for everybody?
I'm sorry. I'm a little slow this evening, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I mean, I can look into the ABVC, but I happen to know one person that's an investigator for them. It seems to me like they're just doing investigations. They don't have the training
Yeah.
component, so.
There is no training component, you're saying, on the state, from the state?
Then, as far as I know, I can look into it
Okay.
further, but.
When the ABCC did offer training, it was Jim that actually did the training, and he's since retired and gone into private practice. And
Oh, I see.
this is sort of his
So
niche, so I don't think they've
yeah.
replaced him.
So those are both Saturday dates?
Yes.
Can you just remind us of the time, I'm sorry. I have to-
Noon to 3.
Noon to 3,
Noon
that's
to
what I thought.
12 to 3.
And
I
where?
can be flexible.
The EOC. Yeah, basement,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right.
Took me a while to find it, but it's.
Okay, so 12 to 3?
Noon to 3.
Great.
On what date?
March first.
March first, thank you.
Great. Thank
Who are
you.
you?
Thank you very much.
Okay, take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, Selectman comment. Steve?
I found the MMA conference to be very interesting, actually, probably the most interesting exhibitor I visited there was a company that comes in and does risk management audits. They do it from the background of underwriting, which is, to me, essentially what you end up paying for when you're paying for risk mitigation. And they had an interesting take on it. My point was that it's when we had set out to talk about our objectives back in the summertime, one of the areas that I'd asked to focus on was legal services, because my view is that legal services was, that role was really risk management. I've talked with Chris broadly about that arena. And it actually dovetails with the second item, which I was gonna bring up, which is the management letter that we received in our packets, with regard to the annual audit. The totality of risk management, and as identified within the audit, shows that we've continued to make some very good progress. There are still some open items, and I first of all wanted to congratulate not only the financial team, but the department heads, for their frankly, for the turnaround that was noted by the auditor. It's taken place over the last several years. It hasn't been immediate. It's been an ongoing process. And I hope the board continues to press ahead in that direction, because there are still enough open items left that merit our attention. And but from that end, I want to say thanks, congratulations, and good work. Let's keep it going.
Amen.
Very good. Thank you. Diane?
I just wanted to ask for a moment of silence for Jimmy Lyden, who died a few weeks ago. Jimmy was Cohasset High School class of, let me just do this right, 84. His wife Kate is on the rec commission. His son Jimmy just graduated from Cohasset High School last year, and his daughter Libby's in, I believe, 8th or 9th grade, and it's just a great family. Jimmy was a fixture at Black Rock Beach, and just the warmest, nicest, brightest smile, and I just send my sympathies to his entire family. It's a big loss. He was a great guy and had a lot of friends in town, so. Thank you, and that's it.
Karen?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to bring back the fact that we've had letters prior to the concerns expressed about the parking in the village. We had letters regarding the parking at the churches, and as I understand it, individuals are still receiving tickets in areas that they believe are legal parking areas, and I'm hoping that we might be able to address this as quickly and exponentially as we addressed the,
Okay, so, can you brief Chris offline on this?
Sure.
Yeah, instead of us taking the time of the board, but,
I also
Thank you,
did
yeah.
check with one member of the Cohasset Common Historic District who says they have absolutely no control over parking of the roads, and we can do whatever we want.
this is we have a bunch of parking stuff in flux, so.
There was a parking committee formed, which I think you may have been invited to.
Yes.
They had a meeting yesterday morning, and Jen was there and gave me a quick update. They're moving forward on a lot of ideas and et cetera, except most of them are relating to the town lot and the parking lot behind the village, and they have a meeting, I think, either next Monday or the Monday after, but
Well,
this
the
should,
The
this
letter
needs
on,
to circle in.
the first letter was received October 3rd. Oh, Jen, Tracy, I'm sorry, just before I
Yeah.
lose her name. The Town Managers Act was stamped 2013. I noticed that, and I wanted to mention it to you.
We just got new stamps.
The first letter was October 3rd, and the second letter was October 30th, so, I think that, it's not unreasonable for the people who have concerns within the church and the preschool, that we should make some effort to delineate, exactly where they can and cannot park and make a decision on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Anything else?
No.
Martha?
Yes, I too went to the conferences. 4 of us went, and it was very good. I met old friends because I, years ago, had been on the MMA board and the Board of Selectmen Vice Chairman. I find that it continues to be so valuable meeting all kinds of people in. Now, I had a call from Rich Crone on return of weekend commuter rail, and he subsequently gave us a letter. And he also told me that Situate is voting tonight to, and I had talked with the mayor of Braintree. He's involved with this. We were the only train, commuter rail, that was summarily cut off from our weekend service. And actually, it had a Chamber of Commerce loss because people could come down for the weekend and enjoy the beaches and couldn't come. And also, there's a problem with, they also wanna have the trains during the week be maybe 11:30 so people can go to the games and also theater. So this is what Rich would like us to write a letter in support, and we can take it under advisement and do it. And I was for 23 years on this committee to reestablish it. The railroad bed was there, and it just took a long time. And I take it in regularly, so the citizens really like it.
Well, I think it makes sense for somebody to draft a letter
Yeah.
that we could review to
Mhm.
vote on.
Well,
And
that's right.
I think my sense is that,
Yeah.
Anybody wanting to step forward? Steve? Okay, great.
Yeah.
How nasty do you want it?
Just
Okay.
No,
friendly.
we're trying to persuade people.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, maybe you should get
You
someone
better
else.
let me proofread it.
Yeah.
I actually.
And then I have one other thing, I understand, and I have a copy of this, I didn't bring it with me, but the 3A corridor study has been done. And it's come back to the planning board, and I'm anxious to read that too.
Yeah.
And in that regard, I've applied to get my old job back on the committee that studies trains and roads and everything of the MMA. And I saw John Robertson, and he said, well, we'll try and get you on. And that used to meet mostly all over the state of Massachusetts, but mainly at the DPW garage in Wellesley. And you can bring back all kinds of good information from that the town can, without cost. So I'm anxious, I hope I can,
Excellent.
yeah.
I just wanted to, just a little small correction on what Martha said, that I think there are 2 lines were cut off, the Plymouth Kingston line and the Greenbush line.
Yeah,
Portage Park.
The weekend service.
The
Yeah.
weekend service,
Yeah.
because that's where the Duxbury, because
Yeah.
the packet we got were
Yeah, I know.
all from that line as opposed to the
Yeah, I know.
Greenbush, so,
The,
hopefully other Greenbush will, 'cause
Yeah, well, the Greenbush,
Way
we tried at the time when they did that, a year or so ago.
Well, the timing is good with the new operator coming in place shortly.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's interesting to note that a good chunk of the support, and this was an item that was nearly evenly split in town with regard to town support. The supporting group was vocal about their desire to maintain or to have access to Boston.
Well, that's it.
Based on weekend service. And it's fascinating that, you know, the T would spend $400 million on something and then shut it down 30% of the time. So-
Well, I agree with you on that, and interestingly enough, through the years, cause it took 23 years to get this, and I was on the environmental committee, the board the majority of the vote would go back and forth on the select, depending on who went in and so forth.
Who was up for reelection?
That's right, it was in there. And it was very interesting, at the end, there were 5 of us who met in the basement of Marshfield, and we worked with the Carmen's Union, and interestingly, all the governors, all the way through that, supported it. They were very good, we just had to get the legislature to work on it.
Anything else, Martha?
No, that's it.
Okay, I also enjoyed the MMA conference this last weekend. One of the sessions that, it was a great opportunity to see all the gubernatorial candidates speak. That was
Yeah.
fascinating to see them interviewed and get a feel for Republican,
How they all
unenrolled,
sounded the same,
Democrat.
except for 2 of them.
So it was interesting to see what, they had to say about the things that the MMA cares about a lot, which is the citizen towns in Massachusetts. Also, I happen to attend an open meeting law seminar, and so I'm always interested in learning more about it. Chris was there also. One of the things that came up, which kind of surprised me, had to do with the agenda. As you know, the chairman is in charge of the agenda, but they specifically said there's no discussion on back and forth on the agenda, and so it's kind of tricky. I'm gonna be working with Chris on it. Chris is gonna start doing the agenda with me again, and but so I think as board members, we have to be careful of the type of feedback that you give me once a draft agenda goes
Oh,
out. I guess that's the
okay,
point I'm
okay.
making.
The draft, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's
I
almost
think
like
you're
they
right,
don't
you're right.
want you to come back to me and say, hey, start trying to persuade the chair or something about it. I'll be frank with you, it doesn't make a lot of sense. If somebody says, hey, there's a, red flag on, maybe we shouldn't be discussing this issue until 3 weeks from now, the way the current open meeting law is drafted,
Fairly restrictive.
it's very restrictive. So I just want to let everybody know that that's sometimes why I'm not getting back to you on stuff.
Okay.
So, and that was confirmed this weekend, so.
Now,
Okay.
there's one
Yeah.
other thing,
Way to
I
make it
went
harder.
to the labor law and the legislation, new law legislation, and I brought back a whole lot of stuff, because no one's here, and I think if you don't have it here, it's in there, a lot of the cases that they talked about, and other information from other law firms, it's very interesting. It's always helpful to get this stuff.
Sure.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, it just jogged my memory, I'd made myself a note. I had run into Tom Wigmore, and he's very anxious that we approve the date for the
Oh, yes,
flag ceremony.
I'll bring that up in the next item, okay?
Okay.
Okay, that's all I had, so we'll go to Selectmen's correspondence, and I have Mr. Wigmore's letter right here, I'll just read it into the record. Dear Mr. Chairman, at the last meeting of the Sons of the American Legion, it was voted to sponsor a Veterans Healing Field project in our community. The Healing Field project started out as a simple community project in Sandy, Utah, to remember those lost on September 11, 2001, in a field filled with more than 3,000 flags. Our event will be held from May 17th to June 1st. The project will consist of at least 500 American flags in a military row, and we will be dedicated to veterans who served our country from the town of Cohasset and surrounding communities, those currently on deployment, and those residents who made the supreme sacrifice. This will be our 8th year hosting the Healing Field. We are requesting permission to use the traffic island at the corner of Summer Street and Boyer Street at Elm Street and at Elm Street and Cove Road. I see this project as an opportunity for all residents and merchants to come together to make a difference. This is an opportunity for all to participate in a heartfelt healing and make a difference in our community. If you have any questions, you can contact me. Respectfully submitted, Thomas W. Wigmore. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved 5-0, thank you. So we did get a letter from Marshfield Citizen Coastal Coalition. As you know, the surrounding communities, not as much Cohasset, are directly affected by the FEMA maps that have come out, and I think Congress is moving to stall that, but they were looking for some political support, which I don't think is a lot to ask from us, because we may be asking them for political support for surrounding communities. So, as a board, have any objections to somebody crafting a letter to our elected federal officials in support of this?
I just was curious, and I should have done it, and I didn't, shame on me. This is a citizens group,
Yeah.
which I'm all in favor of. I'm assuming that the Marshfield Selectmen or board is supporting this.
Yeah, it's Garrett Bradley and Jim Cantwell and
Oh, everybody on the state
everybody's
level.
been working on
Right.
this, yeah, Hull, Marshfield, Situate, Duxbury.
Yeah, everybody.
Hingham even is affected, and Weymouth, so we just happen to be a little bit higher with the Legend Cohasset,
Right.
so we don't have as many people directly affected, but there's unanimous support up and down the political structure.
We also are, because we're Norfolk County, I believe our maps weren't as adversely affected as
Ours
the
were
town
done a year
maps,
ago,
'cause
and so we
2
just got
year, yeah.
another wire, but it doesn't
Right.
mean
But
we
we
won't
have
be
had some
coming, yeah.
people affected.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So,
I'm happy to
Chris,
craft
do you
some-
feel comfortable? Oh, you wanna do it?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll take it out. I'll do it for you. I'm happy to do it.
Oh, Diane's doing it?
Thank you.
I'm happy to assist if you need.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Okay, now, next item is the upcoming 400th anniversary of Captain John Smith sailing into Cohasset. We have a bunch of different people here. Why don't you all come up? And we're just gonna start a discussion on what is town's doing and some of the things. Howie, why don't you come up too? We're gonna start with Howie. He's working on getting some town money on repairing the landing that commemorates Captain Smith, and then we'll go to the Historical Society and hear what they're looking at, and
Well, actually, Becky
Commission.
is in the commission. She's
I
the
understand
Historic
that,
Commission,
yeah.
you said Historical Society.
oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
She's the Historical Commission, it's not the society.
Okay, yeah.
Congratulations. Thank you. And everyone. So I don't wanna jump over the commission, I haven't spoken with them yet, their last meeting, I guess everyone was taken down by the flu.
Right.
And so I was in the parking lot unknowingly waiting, but I have talked with Todd a little bit about my focus interests, so there's a lot of different people coming at it from different perspectives with the 400. Do you wanna make your presentation first?
No,
Because
go
you're-
ahead.
Okay.
No.
So, the 400th anniversary of the landing, 1914, the marker was put up, so that's the 100th anniversary of that pavilion. My particular focus would be, I think it's an opportunity to fill in a little history, expand our knowledge maybe of the Native American population that was here at the time, and the interaction and the encounter that Smith had. It's a little sparse, so I'd like to focus on that and work with anybody who's working. I talked to a lot of people in town, there's good excitement about it. I thought it was a good educational opportunity to do that and expand our knowledge a little bit. And maybe include, in the context of the renovation of the park and the rock and the benches, some recognition in respect of the original residents, maybe with a plaque or to be decided. You know, Plymouth, they have a little bit about the Pilgrims and the Native Americans too. So I think it can be done and woven together in a balanced way that respects all parties that had the encounter and the visit. So that's my focus, and I'd really be interested in doing that. And so toward that end, I've spoken with a lot of residents, spoken with Fred, got a lot of excitement, Diane. Talked to Todd, who sits both on the CPC and the Historical Commission. He's very excited about it too. So They haven't had their meeting yet, so I don't wanna jump, I'm just trying to get my information together. But I've done a lot of research, I've spoken with the school. Barbara Cataldo was very excited, and she connected me with Principal Connolly, who wants to involve the students in a project to do some research toward this end, as a community service project and/or a work-study project. So the high school students would be involved, doing some sweat equity there on the grounds, maybe in the cleanup and renovation as well. But the students who are more focused on the history aspect of it, the seniors maybe, would get into doing the research a little bit too. And so the high school would be committed to lend their resources to whatever group leads the effort. I'm just trying to assemble a lot of components, and we'll put it under the roof of someone, probably the Historical Commission appropriately. I've also spoken with the Massachusetts Division of Indian Affairs, which is a state agency run by Native Americans, created specifically to interact with towns on occasions such as this, to make sure and help see that it's done in a balanced sort of way. John Peters, who's the executive director up there, is very enthusiastic. It could possibly even be a source of funds and resources and research. So there's a lot of players that are willing, and it's a great opportunity to do it, and we'll be one of the first towns, I think, doing this, because he made his way down the coast. So it's a good model for others in the long run. So I think we're onto something. There seems to be a lot of excitement, and I'm happy to help, as Fred would, maybe with speakers or.
Yeah,
if we
could you
need it,
talk a little bit about what renovations you see it needed
Well,
at the wharf?
I just kind of jumped in
Yeah.
on that because
Yeah.
Wayne Sawchuk came to the CPC with an interest in doing that.
Okay.
And I know that Todd, who's on both the CPC and the commission and is an architect, has a lot of
Okay, so we're gonna be
ideas.
looking at what needs to be done
Yeah,
down there.
Todd has,
Got
and the
it.
commission
Okay.
will, that's
Yeah.
a little bit
Okay.
above my pay grade. but
Sounds good.
I know they're talking about brickwork and benches and redoing the area, plantings and maybe the pergola, But
You could use a
again,
little
it's a little
spiffing.
early, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm happy to work and help in any way I can toward that effort with the commission, the CPC, the
So
Bureau
the
of
history of
Affairs.
that is that was pretty much built 100 years ago at the 300th anniversary.
Built on the 300th anniversary.
In 1914.
Yeah.
And I have actually a copy of the dedication that they did
Oh,
that day.
okay.
So, anyway, that's my interest, and I'll continue to build interest, and Todd had suggested I ought to consider joining a subcommittee that the commission is forming, which I'd be eager to do and work. And so, and just happy to lend my energy and interest to that effort.
Okay, the 400th anniversary of the discovery of the town of Cohasset. We have been discussing at the Historical Commission for the past 2 or 3 months and stuff, and we wanna try to have the town involved as much as we can with it. And we'd like to schedule a Cohasset John Smith Day type of thing in September. And we're talking about September 13th. Everybody will be back, from the summer, and we want it to really be a town-wide activity. I've talked to a couple of people connected with the Chamber of Commerce with the idea of maybe having a mini Cohasset Day or some type of Cohasset Day. With John Smith as a theme or something or other. We also wanna have a ceremony down at Lawrence Wharf. And that's where, we wanna have any renovations done or dedicated or something like that day. Yeah, it was originally, put up on the 300th anniversary in 1914. So it does need a little bit of spiffing up with it, definitely.
More than a coat of paint, right?
At least a coat of paint. We also talked about maybe getting somebody from the Coast Guard to come down and have something at the, have one of the Coast Guard cutters. We've checked the tides, and tide is high at the right time of day.
Oh.
with it.
Excellent.
We'd love to do a reenactment of the encounter that John Smith had with the Indians. If it was possible, some way that we could do it. We've talked about, having some local boat races. Possibly get the Coastal Research, the Jack Buckley's group involved with it. I know, I've talked to Wayne Sawchuk about being on a subcommittee, and what we wanna do is try to get a subcommittee together that would help, with some of these different angles. I know he'd mentioned that you were interested in the Native Americans, and getting in contact with them and doing some work with that. we'd like to have some school projects at different levels, maybe have them write essays or do some video projects or do some plays about the landing. People have suggested celebrating with a parade or a dance or an evening get together. The only thing is what we do now, remember in 6 years, we have the 250th anniversary of the, of Cohasset becoming a town. So we wanna, say some things for that possibly.
Save
So
your
I guess,
energy.
what?
Save your energy.
Yeah, save our energy, yeah. So I guess what I'm kinda looking for tonight is your support and your help maybe in helping to get a committee together that would work with the Historic Commission to plan all these activities, cause the more people we have involved, I think the better it would be for the town. And it should be an event for everyone. So that's kinda what we want, is your support of the date and, if people are interested in joining a subcommittee to
Sounds
put the
good.
word out.
What does the board feel?
I think I've been talking to Todd about this for the last year and a half, cause he knew about it, probably 20 years ago, and he's been counting the minutes. So I think it's exciting. Just a couple of thoughts, and I can help connect you with just the Cohasset Cultural Council, which is actually a town-appointed board. I know I came to your meeting and it was like the next day a grant deadline was due, but they'll be re-granting monies next year that would incorporate that September 13th time period. So maybe somebody from the Cultural Council to get involved, cause they have their hands in kinda everything. Even you just said some plays, maybe Lisa Pratt would be interested in helping out from that point of view, so I'll send you names, but I think it's
Okay.
a terrific idea.
I could, if you don't have a representative from the Historical Society, I could take that place. I am liaison to you too, but
Right.
if you want, we should get maybe someone else there too. And, somebody from the schools, and you.
Yeah, I spoke with Carolyn Conley, the principal, they're
Yeah,
all in.
yeah.
Well, there's
They're
plenty
just
of
looking
work
for direction.
to be
Plenty of
done,
work.
and we're looking for volunteers that are interested in working on this, so, I think we can probably coordinate some of that through our office.
Yeah, and we can
Yeah.
have the Mariner put something in,
Yeah,
a
we're
little
trying to
bit
get something
about it.
together for the Mariner that talks
Okay.
about the
And then you can
16,
ask the
14
Hawkins,
expedition, and then also advertise.
I see the
to people.
chairman of CPC, Russ, any comments on this at this early stage?
We were approached about doing the roof over for the pavilion by Wayne, but nothing has come in yet. We wouldn't be able to fund a program or reenactment,
Right.
and I'm not so sure on signage, oddly enough. But, whatever we can do, we'd be more than glad to. We have a scheduled meeting for this Monday, which I'm going to have to cancel. I'll tell you in a little bit. But I look forward to working with that. It's I think it has a lot of potential. Not a lot of towns around here can make the claim that they were discovered as long ago as we were.
If I'm not mistaken, there's not many 400th anniversaries ahead of us.
No,
No.
There isn't.
I think this is gonna be,
unusual.
although he was up in Maine before this, I think,
Yeah.
fishing.
Yeah, he was up on a fishing
Yeah,
expedition.
and then came down here, so.
Yeah.
But as far as Massachusetts is concerned.
He was still fishing down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, if anyone's interested, I can send you the links to the original speeches at the 1914 commemoration
Oh, that's
of
great.
the
That's
memorial.
wonderful. Please do.
I have them online.
You know,
History buffs.
the Historical Society should have an exhibit at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Do you have that on your list or not?
Well, I don't know, yeah,
Yeah,
they'll do whatever we
do
want
that,
them to,
yeah.
do whatever we need
Yeah,
them
we
to.
can do it.
With it, and they have a contact of possibly a John Smith
Do they?
reenactor,
John,
try to have him.
Holly, could you send that to Tracy and she could send it out to all of us?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And so we can try to get a few things going on.
Yeah.
For the time being, does it make sense to come in every couple of months and just
Sure.
talk
Yeah.
about where we're at
Yeah.
and what we need from the town and the townspeople, and we'll keep working on this, and, does anybody like to make a motion in support of the board on this?
I'd make a motion to support the anniversary, 400th anniversary of Captain John Smith Committee and date, September
September
13,
13.
2014.
Do we have a
Second.
second? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 5-0, congratulations.
Thank you.
One quick question while you're leaving, what month did he land? Do you know?
It was during the summer.
It was during the summer.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I'm surprised he didn't stay. It's when we're at our best.
Okay,
The beach was a big
real
deal.
quick, the next item was just to clarify the starting time of the annual town meeting. Tracy, I guess we didn't really have a discussion of that, so.
We talked about briefly, somebody
Yeah.
mentioned 6:30,
U-
then 7,
Usually
it's
it's
usually
7
7
o'clock, so is
we
the board
start.
okay with 7 o'clock start?
Yes.
Okay,
And the election is it 8 to 8, 8 to 6?
that's set by
8
town,
to
it's
6.
the,
I
state
think
statute.
that's, yes,
Yeah.
8 to 6.
Well, the state sets
The state sets it automatically, it's the law.
The annual election?
Chris, just,
We have the
as an
same thing
FYI.
every year though.
Well, no, not the, we set the date, but the state has requirements of the time.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know it
So-
ends at 6 because sometimes.
So, can I have a quick motion on the 7 PM start of town meeting?
So
Annual town
moved.
meeting? Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next Board of Selectmen meetings, we lost the meeting in February because of school
January.
vacations. So do we wanna meet, pick a third date in February?
What about the day after, the next Tuesday?
The
11th to
11th?
12th.
The 12th?
Because then you,
Thank you, yes. We could meet
On Wednesday the 12th?
Wednesday
Yeah.
the 12th, just so we have a meeting that
Does
week.
that work for everybody?
what about, Steve, he's,
Steve, does that work for you?
I'd love getting together with you guys every once in a while.
This will be a Wednesday. It'll be an extra special treat.
Oh, my goodness, it's just like going out with a new girl. Different night.
Them again.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
If I may
Yeah.
recommend, I've had some individual conversations with all of you, about the concept of starting to maybe break one of these nights
Yeah.
into a strategic conversation, you know, doing your
Right.
business and then separating one of these, and I'm gonna suggest you consider picking maybe one of those February dates, just to have, you know, to talk about issues.
Something to focus on, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
what exactly I didn't,
Right, that you break, that, it's very, I've worked with boards for a long time, and it's very hard at a business meeting to discuss policy and discuss goals, and I'm recommending that you consider setting aside one meeting a month to goal discussions. And you'll post an agenda, but it'll just be for, discussion, because you don't have enough time really in a meeting like this to have those kinds of conversations. I know you wanna get to that,
Yeah.
and I'd like to help you get there too, so I you know, so you'd have a chance to talk about, you know, maybe you spend an hour talking about the John Smith dedication or something,
Yeah.
you know, or the budget, or OPEB, or
oh, okay.
any of 1,000 other things that.
Yeah.
So more of an
Okay.
in-depth focus
And again,
discussion.
and
yeah.
also of the, you know, the 6 things that you were talking about
Yeah.
back early in the year, so, set aside a meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
That's exactly what Jeff Nutting told us to do.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
He
exactly.
said it's the best way to just
Right.
drill
So maybe the
down
first
on
one you
things
pick
that are
might be the
important.
12th, you know, it's an off
Yep.
day, it's a Wednesday,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
that would be the first one.
But,
Okay.
but if we have, emergency items can be on it.
Oh, well, yeah, you can always do that.
Yes, a license comes up with some,
Yeah.
whatever provision that's altered, and just take it quick, but the idea is though is to clear the deck of the ordinary business that we just pulls us away from the strategic discussion, so, thanks for bringing that up, Chris.
I think that's a great idea, thank you.
Thanks.
You need to formally move that on the 12th?
Yeah,
Yeah. Do you have a motion on having a meeting on the 12th,
so moved.
for the second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, so we can have a brief discussion on goals and objectives. I think that maybe this could be, what do we want to discuss on the 12th? What do we want the focus of that meeting to be?
So the last time we really had this conversation was back in June,
Yeah.
and,
Do you have an extra copy of that?
I can most certainly make a copy.
You don't need to do it right now.
Let me
Here,
just-
you can just,
yeah, so we had we had like 6 things. One was financial management.
Yeah.
We kind of agreed, I don't know that we took a formal vote, I can't remember, but we agreed on financial management, HR, personnel management, bylaw, policies, procedures, bylaw review, which would incorporate committee charges and things like that. The permanent town manager search, done. A police chief search, town council legal services, which would include a whole bunch of possible things, and then a community communications plan, which had a million things under it, whether it's computer use policy, or the website, or press releases about what's going on in town, so, we can pick one of those. I mean, I would think that probably policies, procedures, bylaw review is not as important as HR, financial management.
I mean, I agree with you, Diane, I think that we have some pressing issues in front of us regarding, the budget, OPEB, and certainly what we're gonna do with HR. But we really need a lot of input from Chris, also on the HR. So,
Well, this is delving a little bit into the next agenda item, which was budget, but do you think we'll be ready to really drill into that at that point? Yeah,
We
maybe
have to
that,
be.
yeah. So maybe that,
Yes, we do.
He's sitting right here.
maybe that, you know, we can talk about OPEB and so, but it'd be more like a financial drill down, to get some real discussion going about where we are with the budget.
We could even, just in terms of broader strokes, just spend even 15-20 minutes figuring out within the overarching financial management, where are the specifics that we need to get to.
Yeah.
The OPEB being one of them, obviously the FY15 budget, and then there's all kinds of other.
Well, I have a question for the board, and there's lots of different ways to format budgets, but is everybody comfortable with the format they have the budget in presently, or would they like it more detail, or?
I don't like it at all, and I've spent many hours on it. I want more detail.
I will make an effort, and it's gonna be hard in such a short time, I'm gonna
Yeah.
to try to weave some narrative into this so that the numbers tie into programs and policies.
We
'Cause
understand.
I think that would help, I mean, there needs to be, I don't know Master's Law dead set yet, but, in New York, we have to do a line item budget, just by law. Now, unfortunately, that doesn't tie back very well to program development, so we started to put into the budget in North Hempstead, just what departments do and what things are funded.
Right.
I think we could try to do that here, just to help explain that, and again,
You can work with, Peter Pescatore, he's a good guy on that, and that'd be very helpful. Budget.
And while we're on Peter, we got an email from Peter, and I think we were reluctant to answer under the open meeting law, because we have to be careful having a conversation on email. So, but, does anybody wanna tackle Peter's question in the email today? About the
I can only
2.5?
say that my understanding was that, I believe, I have it in my book, but as I recall, it says that, a 2.5% increase for the non-union employees consistent with the union employees.
Yeah.
So, shame on me if I didn't ask the right questions, but my interpretation of that, and the reason I voted in favor of that, was that I understood that the union raises were per employee, and that the 2.5 would go to each employee consistent with what the unions get. Not that it would be an overall 2.5% raise that would be divided up however the town manager felt
That's right.
it should go, so, that's my answer.
Peter?
Could I come up
Sure,
and just, state my question? And then,
Yeah. Thank you, yeah.
we can discuss that. In the guidelines that the Board of Selectmen, the Peter Pescatore Advisory Committee, that the Board of Selectmen approved to kick off, October 1st, to kick off the fiscal year 15 budget cycle, one item, and I quote, is, "We anticipate non-union compensation increasing at 2.5%, in line with negotiated union increases." That was the guidance for compensation. And I found it to be, as I was going through the budgets, I found the budgets to be all over the place. And so I asked this question: please clarify if you meant
One, the 2.5% maximum incremental pay increase per employee, per non-union employee. And that would be the increment, if it was an increment plan. Or, the second part was a 2.5% increase in total for all non-union employees in aggregate, so that a pot of money would be identified, 2.5% of the pay base of that population, and could be given out in any form that the town manager wanted. Or three, is it 2.5% COLA, cost of living adjustment, which changes the pay structure by 2.5% up. And those are three distinct approaches. And I just wanted clarification if, which direction do you wanna go in, because in the budget, in the current draft, we're all over the road.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Steve?
I actually had responded to Peter because having been the original writer of it,
Yeah,
what I'd had in mind and what I wrote to Peter was,
thank you for not ceasing.
Yeah, thank you.
Didn't want you to violate the open meeting law there.
believe it or
so-
not, I actually thought about that, and that's
No.
why I
I'm
didn't
glad you
reply
did.
at all. As, I can tell you that I intended to communicate a non-union compensation increase for budgeting purposes of 2.5%, assuming no increase in headcount. And then I go on to say, but it's still a board decision. So the point was that I looked at it as an aggregate when I originally wrote the piece, for budgeting purposes. Again, you know, we hire a town manager to allocate accordingly, but from a budgeting standpoint, it's up to us to define the policy. What is it that we're giving as broad marching orders? And so from that perspective, assuming no increase in headcount, I took on the budget expansion for non-union employees to match what we had negotiated for union employees. So as a total line item across the board, it was an expansion, which I believe was option 2, as you presented.
2 would be the cost, the
Right.
2.5% cost.
As
where you-
opposed to increment,
As opposed to increment.
which is the way I had thought of it.
Yeah, increment would
But
be, everybody could only get a maximum of 2.5%
Right.
each. Cost is you identify 2.5% of the pool of money that you're talking about. And then
Right.
that's at the town manager's disposal to
Which was the.
pay out as he sees fit.
And again, the basis for originating that phrase was thinking about it from a budgeting standpoint. Okay, not an HR element.
Okay, and what we have, I'll just tell you what we have right now. We have 0 increases for some people, we have way over 2.5% for other people, and you have a COLA put in place.
What's the COLA?
Cost of living.
No, I
adjustment.
meant what percentage?
2.5%. The whole pay scale has
And
been
it,
risen
how can the
2.5%.
COLA go in effect in other stuff and still meet the 2.5% goal?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay, so you get a 2.5% COLA, that should eliminate any other,
Well, that says
raises.
the pay rate, the pay scale
yeah,
went up 2.5%. So that anyone who was at the top of their category
yeah. top
is now
step.
allowed to get a 2.5%
Yeah,
raise.
right, yeah,
That's a COLA.
yeah, right.
Okay? The other 2 options, that wouldn't apply because the pay scale would come back to the 2014 pay scale.
I mean, I just, in my head, I was thinking it's option A, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think we may not
Management gets 2.5%.
come to a final conclusion tonight, but I think the intent in my mind was that it would be, whatever was negotiated in fairness with the unions would be given to our non-union town employees, which is if the unions get 2%,
So
they would get 2%.
there's no argument about.
Yeah,
the
so to
amount.
me, it seemed to me
It's
that
about
like
how,
Right.
it's about
option
how.
one or 3 would be have the same effect. If it was, say, a 2.5% increment, wouldn't everybody end up with the same pay stub
No,
as the
there's
COLA steps
a
going up?
distinct difference between the 2.
Okay.
Again, on the COLA, the whole pay scale, if the
All the
starting
steps
point of the pay
change.
scale was $10,
Okay.
it would go up to whatever,
Yeah,
okay? With the 2.5%, the pay scale would not adjust, and anyone who was at the top of the pay scale would not be eligible for a raise.
yeah.
There's a very distinct difference.
Okay, so my thing would be, the steps would increase by that percentage.
So you would go with the COLA.
The grid would change, yeah.
Okay, that's all I'm just trying to, because
Yeah.
right now, we're all over the road.
Right.
So that means everybody would get 2.5% COLA then?
Well,
The pay grid would shift up, otherwise it
Yeah, I
stays
know,
stuck
I
in
know,
the,
I know.
you
Yeah,
know,
it would go up, yeah.
in the past.
So,
So I think, well, I just wanted to clarify it so
Yeah.
that
so
he
Peter,
and I can agree on what we're doing, because
Yeah.
once again.
We need to know how to move forward.
Once again, the majority of the spending is payroll. And it starts right in the nits and grits. This is where it happens. And you've gotta get this right,
Yeah.
because everything
Throws it
flows
all
from
off.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
so what, but, did I understand you correctly to say that in the budget right now is
The COLA,
a 2.5 COLA?
pay scale's been increased by 2.5%.
And over and on top of that is another 2.5%?
No, no,
No,
no, the scale has gone up. Some people got 0, some people got something,
Okay,
some
so it's
people got
just-
way more than
it's,
2%.
it's the 2.5, it's the COLA, but it's been distributed,
Well, the COLA is one issue, then looking at what's proposed so far is a whole separate issue.
Peter, can I ask you just separately, what's if you took the payroll, the non-union payroll aggregation, last fiscal year versus
Yeah.
proposed budget, what's the actual current increase?
I don't have the exact numbers. Actually, I pulled out most of the people as best I could I was taking a
Yeah.
look at them over a 3-year period to see where we really were.
But on a percentage basis, if our target was 2.5, what does the proposed budget actually show?
I don't have it.
3.5,
Yeah,
4?
I haven't done it.
Okay,
I
all right.
haven't.
So
All
that
right.
actually, they could get, besides the COLA, they could get another increase. Is that what you're saying?
There's
As the
additional bonuses in there.
Additional
yeah.
bonuses.
Sure.
Additional
And
raises.
what is that?
Yeah, but I'm looking for the intent. Was the intent just to have 2.5% cost increase? 2.5% individual, the COLA
Yeah.
says, okay, the pay scale just went up, but you still don't, I still don't know what the policy is for individual people under that pay scale.
You mean this is non-union, this is non-union only?
Right.
Non-union only,
I
right.
have a
Yeah,
question.
okay.
When the union receives raises, does everybody receive the same raise, or is it?
I'll
No.
defer to the chief if he's here.
For the most part, yes.
Okay.
Well, I know that.
So if it says in line with the union, then that would indicate to me that was the intent. But having explained to me now, I'm not sure, and I think I mean, if somebody's at the top rate, and then they wouldn't be eligible for a raise.
Unless
Well,
you
yeah, so that's
say
the
we
problem.
intended it to be a COLA, or
If you
Right.
have the
the scale
grid,
goes up.
if you have the grid and you don't change it, eventually over time, either you gotta start adding steps, because people max
Right.
out and they don't get any
Yeah.
COLAs.
Right.
Well, there is a concept of the value of the job.
Right,
At some point,
but what
Isn't that
happened
how
in
the
what
grid's
happened in the
set up?
past, we got so far away from the grid that we ended up with people all over the place.
well, we had as I recall, we had to reestablish the
Yeah.
grid 3 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
So
okay.
my sense would be to keep the grid current, you need to apply a COLA to it, and then
Mhm.
it keeps up with over time, so you don't have the same situation of drifting away from it.
Well, but there is, again, the concept of every job has a value. And at some point, you wanna say, you're at your max.
Mhm. Well, when I was doing this years ago, we didn't have any unions except for police, fire, and school.
That's why I said we may not settle this tonight, this
Yeah,
could
no,
go to some more discussion,
But
but,
I think what Peter's looking for is direction from the board as to,
Yeah.
and I'm,
well,
Chris needs
I
it
think
too.
Chris and
He's
Peter
building
need
the
to kinda
budget.
delve
Yeah.
into more what's going on and make a recommendation back to us, but most of what I'm hearing from the board is our
Right.
intent was the 2.5 would be applied quote unquote more equally across the
Right.
base.
exactly.
And again,
I am,
I caution the board to look at this not as managers, but as policymakers, okay? Let the manager carry through on that, and look at it from a budgetary standpoint for the non-union employees. From that perspective, what were we looking to accomplish in setting the guidelines out? Okay? Points are all well taken, but I would argue that those are management decisions as opposed to policy decisions.
Peter?
No, we
At this
think
point,
there is.
yeah, at this point, by the way, I've done it from all perspectives, but I hear all of what you're saying, all of them I've experienced and worked with, and, you know.
I'm just trying to get clarification.
No, exactly,
so-
right, no, and I've gotten, I think,
So we can
I
be
think
on the
I've
same
gotten a
page.
good sense from all of you of where you were coming from. And at this point, I'm really not coming from anywhere, I mean, you know, you know, I think the staff's fantastic, everyone I work with has been great. I'm still getting my arms around the process. And again, I'm not coming in with any predetermined perspectives on anybody. I like flexibility where I need it. I don't, at the moment, have any particular perspectives. I mean, again, I think everyone's great, so I'll echo that so far. I mean, and I want to be reasonable. I also, you know, I'm trying to understand, you know, where people were coming from coming into this too. So I you know, I need to understand that a little bit better. So I'll be able to have a better conversation, I think, as I delve in. I've been at the 30,000 foot level, I guess. I've been sitting with Mary and going over the big numbers, and I feel much better about those now. We've, you know, drilled down into some of the revenue numbers and some of the expense numbers that we've seen, you know, some initial numbers from Beacon Hill, which is a good start. And now I'm starting to get down much more into the weeds and really understand, well, the line items, I guess. I understand who's where, what, and where we are. I know, you know, again, it's a constantly evolving process anyway, you know, who does what, how, where we're going. I also did one, you can just take one and pass along. These are the updated to the end of December. I don't know if you've seen a recent budget report. This is the half-year numbers for revenue and expense, which I got from Darian. I think you've already gotten those from me, so. I'll try to get these to you every month. I can send them electronically if you'd like, or I can send them in hard copy. It's up to you. So if you have any questions, this is, and again, as I think the advisory committee's already seen, we're actually doing pretty well so far.
Yeah.
These numbers are a little, I think, leave a little more updated. I think it's a fresh revenue number.
We're essentially right on the 6 months. Everything's right, pretty much right on schedule.
Peter, do you know that, I was under the impression the union contracts are two and two,
I'm not positive.
not 2.5.
I'm not positive.
Okay.
So you got some.
Diana, I would have
Bob,
that
can
too,
you
all right,
comment
but
on
then
that?
I went back and looked at what we voted and it said 2.5.
For 15,
That could change
I
me.
think
I
they're
agree
2.5
with you. I thought it was 2.
for 15.
yeah, I think there were one number, but the end, 2.5.
Yeah, I,
And I wasn't here to do it.
two
but-
and a half got in there, so I assume somebody checked it and it was
Yeah,
2.5.
I have a
Well,
packet of contracts.
I'm glad you're asking those questions, Peter, because it's helping to clarify it in all of our minds where
No,
we're
it's just,
headed, yeah.
you know, we need to be on, because it's inconsistent the way it is right now, and, you know, we want to get that straightened away.
I mean, from my point of view, Peter has been intimately involved in the budget process for a number of years now, and, you know, certainly, has expertise and information and history to be able to help.
Well, I find that there are new employees, or at least maybe they've changed names, because I worked with the draft last year, and then I had
You know, there's been some,
this one,
there's
so
been
it's
some title
confusing.
changes and some
A lot of stuff.
little restructuring.
I have about 8 pages of comments, and it took me about 5 or 6 hours to do this, so.
One other thing, just as an aside, while we're talking about the 15 budget, since you're discussing the 400th anniversary in September, that's fiscal 15, we can put money in, carve some money out right now for that, so that we don't have to go looking for funding.
Okay, oh, well, you.
What a
you
novel
too.
idea,
He's
Peter.
very generous, get that in writing.
But
Can
it
you
wouldn't
sign
be an
an advisory
emergency, so you wouldn't get it from me.
We would get it.
Never saw that coming.
Touche,
touche.
We can't say we
touche.
didn't expect it.
It is an emergency for John Smith.
I got my emergency guy
right
Thank you very much.
It didn't matter.
Got rid of all of them, I think.
When do you think you're gonna have your next meeting for your committee?
It's undetermined right now. We've talked with Paula, the treasurer, Paula Linhaus tonight, about the debt and investment, and she wants to bring somebody in on the investment side to discuss where we make our investments. So the capital committee and advisory are talking about having a meeting fairly quickly, but we just heard it tonight, so we don't have a date right now, but it'll be within the next couple of weeks, I think. Because Paula feels like she needs to do something in February, so.
Okay,
I
thank you.
guess February, we can get into the state
Where that's
managed
going.
pension funds for our OPEB money. And she's got some alternatives that she'd like to discuss and have vetted, and so we'll have a meeting around that.
I think she, the sooner she gets some kind of consensus, she wants to get it into a higher yielding investment.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be in there for a while, and the sooner you get it in, the better.
Several people at the convention were talking about that they were shifting to high yield ones.
Yeah, so, we need to help her and the town manager with the expertise around both those committees of both really knowledge.
Thank you.
And I'm certain Steve would wanna sit in on that as well,
Oh, absolutely.
cause when he's doing nothing.
Okay, so unless there's anything else on goals and objectives of the budget, we'll move on to approving the minutes. December 30th.
Just, I had, is that one of the ones I sent you a little tweak on?
The 7th you gave me something.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, well, I didn't give you, but I think. One of them had a typo.
Fixed that.
You fixed it, yeah, okay.
I'll move the minutes for December 30th.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, 5-0. January 7th.
I just had a question, on page 4, I guess, where it says Chairman co-ed moved to go into executive session. Is that for
Yeah, I don't think we ever did move to go in.
No.
No.
Yeah,
Well, I
so
think-
that,
I
we
think you were gonna
discussed
take a
going,
roll
we
call or something,
we
yeah.
discussed going into executive.
Yeah.
Well, I thought, didn't you ask, Steve if he wanted to make a motion?
Well, that
I
was
didn't-
later
no, I
on in
did
the
not.
discussion.
I was asked as to whether or not I wanted to move for the vote of necessity.
Right.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
said, no, I'd much rather let the vote stand as it was.
Okay, because you got the necessity here, but not your name here.
Well, let's fix the first
Okay,
sentence there.
okay.
It says Chairman Cohen moved to go into executive session, so that didn't happen.
How about ask for a roll call? Cause you did do
Well-
that.
You did read the whole thing, that's why I put
You
that
read
in
the-
there.
Okay,
Read
I
the
read
motion.
it, and then, but it's prefaced by, we needed a, rule of necessity vote for me to go in, so, and others possibly, but
I think this is accurate enough. I mean, Tracy, do you recall
did
whether there was a?
I actually read the whole motion?
You did read it.
Read the
Paul
whole
Veronicus
motion.
was here,
Okay,
it was
all right.
read,
And I
because
guess-
Martha asked me to change it, but I re-listened to it on the tape,
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
so-
the way it was read,
Okay.
but it never went anywhere. I mean,
Right.
it's just
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Karen
It was
could take it out if
moved.
they wanted.
Okay, all right.
Right.
Great, thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
But you also said something about not participating too.
Right.
I said I was advised that I could not participate in
Yeah.
that unless there was a rule of necessity vote.
Yeah, you didn't put that. Yeah.
I think it should state that there.
Would not vote unless.
So you just
I
want
mean,
your
the
comment
thing
in
is,
as well?
you can't make up stuff now, it has to be what actually happened then, so.
Well, that's what you said, you did say that. That's-
What?
Oh, nothing, I remember him saying this, that,
Yeah.
that the rule of necessity was a possibility. I remember you commenting after, both Martha and Karen made the point, you said, well, I may fall into that as well.
Right.
And that was when the question arose about voting the rule of necessity.
Yeah.
Personally, I think this is
the whole
relative,
thing was
as
orchestrated.
accurate as it
Either
needs
that
to
or
be.
scratch
Yeah, cause it would, then it would have to kinda almost comment on what
Yeah,
each of
but
us.
Yeah, yeah.
but Fred also said something about not.
Well, it doesn't have to include everything, as long as this covers the gist of it,
Tracy, what ends up being the official record in any case?
The minutes.
The minutes.
Well, yes and no.
also
When we
the
went to
tape,
that,
yeah,
the
yeah.
tape
Tape.
is.
No, well, let me rephrase.
Yeah.
When I sat through the open meetings law conversation with Fred, that's not the case.
Okay,
The official record is this.
okay.
It's not the minutes are a secondary source.
The-
Believe it,
the
I mean,
tape- the tape.
the tape is a
Tape.
secondary source,
Tape-
believe it
tape
or
is
not.
secondary.
Yeah,
Because
well,
what
we-
happens
Attorney
is,
General's office.
the issue is that, things can be recorded on tapes and computers and,
Altered.
over time, you can't go back, like, try to put an 8-track tape into
Yeah.
something, here what's on it now, you can't, you know.
You have to.
That's,
Dating
the
yourself there,
paper
Mr.
is
Chairman.
what, it's
Eight-track.
gonna survive. Yeah.
8-track.
Well,
So,
I was
Ralph
just in
probably
the-
has some in his car.
Put in a 7-2 Vega up front, you
In
gotta
Fred's
I-
defense,
I-
that's the example they used during
They
the
did
session,
use that
somebody was
example,
recording
yeah.
on an 8-track tape. I
Yeah.
don't know what
I
board was
want to
recording an
put it
8-track tape.
You know, and I don't
when we
think,
went to the, we also had to do the open meeting thing, class.
Yeah.
He specifically says, and I have a copy of it, about the minutes, that they're not to be verbatim, they're not to,
Correct.
the only thing that is, the most important thing is the vote.
Motions,
the- Yes,
Yeah.
the motions, the
Yeah,
votes,
the
this,
votes,
that. So I can certainly add in your comment if you'd like it in there.
Well, no, I just
Necessity.
think it should state no vote was taken.
I can absolutely.
It's the minutes that are public.
Yeah, so we did, I mean, we moved to go into executive session, but at some point it should just clarify that no vote was taken to go into executive.
yep,
It doesn't
That's
say
it.
here.
That's
you
the
need
way to
no
handle
vote.
Yeah,
this, yeah.
yeah. I mean, that sums it up,
I'll put it in there.
right?
As
yes.
No vote was taken,
I just put
okay, to go into executive, thank you, all right, so with that, any further discussion?
Just, I sent Tracy some small little corrections, one was just a is instead of an if.
Oh, I saw
but-
that on page 3.
Yep,
I saw that way down after Attorney Humphreys.
yep,
Okay.
And I spelled Charles Humphrey's
eagle
name
eyes.
wrong.
No, I'm learning.
Yeah. And then on the last paragraph on page 1 where it says, referring to, Chris Senior in the contract negotiations, is opting out of the town's healthcare and the town will pay him $7,000 annually, as in opt-out stipend or I gave you some language, because
Yeah,
we're not just
opt-
giving him $7,000
yeah.
annually, we're giving him
Opt out.
a stipend for opting out of insurance,
Right.
which he could elect at some point to opt in, and we wouldn't be throwing $7,000 at him.
Okay.
Okay,
Not yet.
Alrighty. I guess we'll
You're
be
trending
okay.
well.
okay, are we set to vote?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0, okay. I think that's the end of the minutes, right?
Look, if I could just say, Paula has urged me to remind everyone,
Yes.
real estate taxes are due on February 3rd, okay? So I promised her that I would do
Yeah,
that.
can you zoom in there? I better zoom
Put
in.
it in front of.
There you go.
There we go, look at that.
Right.
huh?
Yeah,
Send it in.
wonderful.
This guy needs to eat.
So I've done my duty, I've done my duty.
Yeah.
We need new shoes.
Okay, public comment. Come on up, state your name for the record. Name and address.
Agnes McCann, 104 Dome Street. We heard a number of people mention that they went to the MMA convention, and I support that, I always have. I think the selectmen certainly should go to what I understand to be a really valuable experience, and that would help you guide the town's affairs. I'm not telling you anything, I'm asking, how do you decide who else goes? Because I also heard that a couple of people who were on the governance committee, which I'm a well-known critic of, went to the convention, and I believe they went at the town's expense. And that doesn't necessarily make sense to me. They're not elected officials, they're appointed, they're volunteers. And I'm not sure that the town has a history of sending people like, you know, in that status to that convention or any other like convention. So just maybe thought people would like to have that explained.
Well, we'll work on getting some clarity on it. We are trying to encourage
Thank you.
boards and committees to participate, because there's a lot to learn there. So Chris, can you make a note to, we'll work on a policy of how we deal with that for next year?
I do believe the basis for the extension, however, was exactly that. The MMA is a resource not just for elected officials and town managers or town administrators, but especially in the town meeting form of government, for committee chairs. And we do believe it was extended out to
Well, I think most of the committees.
most of the major, most of the committees.
They have meetings of the advisory boards.
Mhm.
They have them there, and then they have it in the middle of the winter, so they actually have special meetings there, so
Yeah,
they
but
come.
it was, but the point was, that was, I do recall that being a point of discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
It-
that's
It's like
fine.
anything,
Yeah.
there was a number of years where I think Merle Brown and I were the few people who were going regularly, and that's not good. We wanna encourage a lot of participation, but we do have to watch the budget, so we'll work on a policy that can
Yeah.
fairly address one or two members, I think, from every committee that's interested, that's appropriate.
Yeah, just, I mean, just to comment to that, because I'm a huge advocate of the more the merrier. I wish more staff members went, because to be honest with you, a lot of the workshops that are very, you know, we can only go to one. There's like
Yeah.
8 different
There-
workshops,
There
3
was
times a day.
one session that had like 8
Yeah.
at the same time.
And they're
Yeah,
packed,
yeah.
and you wish you could go to all of them. In the trade show, there's no time for even, there's very little
We
time for
barely
us
get
to go
down
to the
there, yeah.
trade show.
So,
So a lot of people are out there, you know, there's information on alternative energy, there's information on, you know, waste management. So personally, I think it's something we should look at involving as many interested parties, obviously within reason. You know, we did talk to Mary ahead of time about the budget, which is, there's one budget in town for conferences for professional staff as well as committee type people. So we were told that there was well more than enough money to cover
Yeah,
people's
I'll just give one
participation.
example. Last year, I was sitting in a session, and they talked about the Safe Ways to School program, sidewalks around school zones. There's like $150,000 we'll end up with in a grant for that we're still working on, but it's just creating awareness of these grants and programs that are out there, so.
Brian was trying to get it, but we didn't get it, 'cause
But
I'm
but
following
there was
it.
a year that we needed to be in
Yeah.
it, that we were now eligible before we become eligible, so now we're coming into the period where we will be eligible for it.
Well, we have to reactivate the sidewalk committee, which is by state statute.
Yep.
We have it, and if we don't have it, citizens can petition the town to have it. That's the way the statute reads.
Chris, can you make a note on that about reactivating the sidewalk committee? And we'll look at who the old members were and
Well,
touch
Peter
base with that.
Purse was chair, and that's how we got Forest Avenue. They did it in sections.
We'll get on top of it, Mark.
Yeah.
Okay, any other public comment? Topics not reasonably anticipated by the chairman 48 hours in advance of the meeting.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Well,
Real
Chief?
quick, did you do anything with the McCoy Foundation?
No.
I
No
mean,
one
I'm
has come
comfortable
here.
doing it without them being here unless somebody really wants
I
to
can
come
speak
in
to
front
it,
of
I mean, it's
Okay.
not a big deal.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
That'd
That
be
was
great,
if you were
but just
waiting
soon
for
get rid
somebody
of,
to speak.
Yeah,
take care of it.
thank you.
Obviously, it's a one-day charity ride of bicycles. I think it's no more than 300 or 400 people that are involved. They make 2 laps through Cohasset. The first lap probably involves 100 or so bikes, 100, 150 bicyclists, and then they come back through a second time. That's that same wave. So it's a 25 or a 50-mile ride. They've done it multiple years in a row. They pay for, just as the getaway to the Cape does, they pay for police details and so forth and so on. It hasn't had a lot of impact on us. We have not even required them to put the ambulance in play like we do with the other event, because it's, in essence, to be very honest, on any given Sunday, we see more bicyclists on Jerusalem Road recreationally than we do during this entire event. So it doesn't seem to be a big
Low
issue.
impact.
I've ridden it up multiple times. They do a nice job of making sure that it's run properly. They still have some issues. We've talked to them, the police have talked to them. I think they're probably good to go. It's not it's a fairly low impact event for the town of Cohasset as things go. You know, unlike the Getaway to the Cape, which they tell you that everybody rides single file,
Right. Madness.
that's a different story. But with this event, because there aren't a lot of bicycles on the road, it goes on for a few hours because they make 2 laps through. But again, from the time of, I believe they kick off at 7:30 in the morning or 7 in the morning, by 10:30, they're gone, and then you just have the regular recreational bicyclists that are riding up and down Jerusalem Road on that same weekend.
I was just like to know, they have when they start, but they didn't have the proposed end.
Again, the whole thing ends over in Hingham and Wampatuck somewhere somewhere before noon time. So
And
they come out of Wampatuck, they come down Hull Street, Jerusalem Road, Atlantic Ave, and out through the harbor, and they're out of Cohasset by 10:30. So it's probably 3 to 3.5 hours of.
So they go right along the coast, down
They
to
go right along
North
the coast.
Situate.
Yes. Go right out down and out Border
Yeah,
Street and
I'm
into Situate, and then they
reading.
ride through Situate, into Norwell, and then back into Wampatuck where it
How many
begins
people
and
do
ends.
they usually have?
I think it's less than 500 total.
They don't say, but it's a 501c.
I
Oh,
want
yeah.
to say estimated 400.
Yeah.
Okay, up here.
I was gonna say, it's less than
And-
500 people, is what I've seen in the past.
Okay, any other discussion?
I also wanna know, how many years have they had this? Since it was instituted 22 years ago?
No, I don't think that they've been riding through Cohasset that long. I only got involved with them 4 or 5 years ago.
That sounds about
So I
right.
think that's where the number is. I think it's somewhere in that
It
range.
says the foundation has been raising money for 22 years,
Yeah, well, it's
not
Yeah.
this.
On the second page, you'll see, it'll say number of years event fund assistance is 4, it's at the bottom
Yeah,
of the
so
second
there it is. So this would be the 5th year.
Yeah,
I would just like to make a comment in general. I don't know about the rest of you, but just in general, whenever there's an event, I get a number of comments from residents, from merchants. It always seems, we have a beautiful town, Jerusalem Road is a beautiful road to go on. But the number of events are increasing. They're all for good causes, we all wanna help them out. But I think at some point we need to evaluate the impact on our residents and our commercial base. I know that the triathlon has rearranged, but now it's gonna impact on a different neighborhood. So that's just my overall comment that, you know, as we start approving for the next season, maybe we wanna look at when the events are and where they are and how they impact our residents and our taxpayers.
well, I think we could look at, maybe we should take a look at historically how it's progressed and make sure we're not going over the line.
Along Karen's comment, I'm actually somewhat less concerned with the events that go through the application process because they can be tracked. We can lay them on a calendar and identify when we're getting into a clogged area. The things that concern me actually more than this, because I did get a complaint from it last year where a woman was actually tossed from her bicycle by a motorcycle ride. And the motorcycle ride was unregistered. They don't have to request permission to come through town. And there are, Chief, I could be wrong about this, but I believe Chief Quigley told me that there were 4 of them that they tracked. And typically they'll get word of it maybe an hour and a half before the ride comes through. And the concern then is that you not only disturb the residents, but you also disturb the potential for providing necessary public safety. If you've got a road closed down or even one lane of it, you know, there are issues with ambulance response, fire response if necessary, police response, et cetera.
It sounds
so
to me
there's-
like if this
yeah.
is something that's getting worse, that this is gonna require some type of state legislation to control it. I mean, I don't know how do we stop a bunch of motorcycles that are licensed? Who wants to stand in front of that?
Yeah, well, that's, and
Right.
so that's exactly what Chief Quigley said, is, you know, what can you do? It's a public way, you can't stop them.
Yeah.
It's in the bottom.
The fact, and this is one of the areas where I wanna be cautious about, because the fact that we've asked for different groups to apply has been a benefit, but at the same time, if they were looking at this, I'd say, why the hell should I apply? I'm just gonna use the public
Gonna
road.
ride through there.
And they're
Well, I guess my
clearly-
question first is, were those fundraisers? 'Cause these are like.
Actually, they are.
Yeah.
They are,
They are.
okay. Alright, so
Well, not all of them.
maybe we should be
No,
putting them on
Triathlon
notice
is
that, hey, we have regulations in town and you ran a fundraiser through us and you didn't fill out our app, and at least put them on warning that there's a procedure.
I understand
Yeah.
I understand where you're going with it, and this is part of the, what we have to view as a
Yeah.
town. I'm tagging on to Karen's commentary
Yeah.
that, rightfully, she's looking at this saying, hey, the calendar's getting pretty chock full. Before it gets out of control, let's see if we can manage it, and I'm just
Yeah.
simply pointing out that there are additional, beyond the folks who are living by the requests that we've
Yeah.
made, there are additional groups who,
Well,
who have
yeah, I mean, years ago, it was just
taken
the
the
Rotary,
liberties.
right? I mean, that was it.
And it was,
Yeah.
and it was.
And it's been growing slowly over time, and what we're concerned about is it's gonna accelerate, and before you know it, every weekend's gonna be having something going
I
on.
think the process that we implemented was in response just to that, so that we know who the usual suspects are, and we're able to control the usual suspects, and we make sure that they adequately take care of everything. To Steve's point about the motorcycle rides, I've been chased off the side of the road with my bicycle by people on these motorcycle rides. It's easier just to get out of their way and wait
Yeah.
10 minutes until they all go by than to try and share the road. That just doesn't work. So, I'm not,
Do you
110
think we could put
decibels in my
together
left ear is not something I enjoy, so.
a calendar that just looks at last year, when we had
I
events?
think from the motorcycle ride, I think we have that all together as far as what we approved last year. Yeah, we have
Or
all of
just
that,
even a
but
list of dates, so we just get a feel for how
Yep.
much we've got, yeah.
I think as far as the motorcycle rides, that would be more of a question for Chief Quigley. He might have a good idea. As he said, 4, I can think of 3 or 4 anyway.
Yeah,
that-
and
that
maybe
your witness
we
go
could have a
through.
second column of when those were, and if we know who they were and what the dates were, and see how it's meshing in, and then
I would
we could
check
work on a strategy to
with Chief
deal with
Quigley
it.
in that regards to that.
Well,
Thank you.
I know that my son lives down near Lower Jerusalem Road, and there was a motorcycle group that came in and no one knew they were coming.
Yeah.
And he couldn't get out of his.
What did it say on the back of the jacket?
Off-duty
No.
police
Actually,
officer.
for what it's worth,
Yeah, but
that's-
they had policemen with them.
Oh, yeah.
That
That was,
directed, not from
Very
our
nice.
town.
That was a group, that, I believe the Boston Police Benevolent Association sponsored, I think was it Cops for Kids or something like that? And no, it wasn't announced.
No, and they
And-
had their own helpers to direct things.
Oh, and they have multiple police officers blocking roads and doing everything, just like a
Well-
typical motorcade, yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly how
But
it
they aren't
works
our
out.
police
Good
officers.
luck with that.
You know?
Maybe,
On-
Chris, you could just look at what the jurisdictional issues are on this and see, just as we're doing our due diligence on it.
So-
Okay, thank you. So we
Wait,
have McCourt.
Yeah,
What do we wanna do with McCourt?
Do we have a motion
We
and
don't
a-
have a motion.
Oh, we don't? I thought we did, I'm sorry.
no, we had a motion to adjourn that we didn't vote on.
Oh.
I got in the way
That's
before you
right,
got
sorry.
to it.
Yeah.
So I'll move approval of October, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So,
thank you,
October
October 5th, for the McCourt Foundation bike ride.
Well, they got two dates on here. One says
I
the
think it's a
5th
rain
and one says the 4th.
Yeah, I think is there a rain date?
The 5th was last year, I believe, in 13.
Oh, okay, got it. Why are they telling us about that? This is
Called cut
about
and
a new one.
paste.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
cut and paste,
Yeah,
right.
okay, so it's October 4th, 2014, and cross out the top one and the 5th of
One of them's wrong.
2013, yeah.
October 4th.
Okay, so we have a motion?
Well, let's see what the Saturday date is, before we approve a date that's.
Saturday the 4th.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay. Do we have a second? Who made the motion?
Me.
Do we have a second?
Second, I'm sorry.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
4-1. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I moved it, you gotta second it.
Okay, I'll second it then.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
It's,
You did very well going to this huge agenda.